And ladies and gentlemen, it's time to talk about Nintendo's big show this year. They're going to kick off their presentation in just about a half hour. You can be part of the show while you're watching at home. Just tweet your questions at IGN with hashtag E3 2016. So, should we start with Legend of Zelda? That's like their big gun they brought to E3 this year.
Oh yeah, no, we should. I mean, it's exciting, but the expectations have never been set lower, I think, in the history of Nintendo at E3. Just sort of putting it up front and saying, Zelda's the only playable game we're going to have at the show.
Sure.
And so going in, there's definitely a lot of excitement to finally learn more about what that is, but there is the melancholy of, well, what else do you have? And, you know, it's still that sign of Nintendo being stuck between generations, between Wii U and that next thing.
Yeah. Well, there's only a few game franchises in history where you can say this is the only thing we're doing and it's still kind of okay.
Yeah, it's
like
enough.
you get a handful of Zeldas in a lifetime, you know. At least
they take a while to make.
They take a while to make. Big console Zeldas like this, we haven't seen like something like this since Skyward Sword.
That's right.
Which, you know, a lot of people were sort of lukewarm on, me included. It's the only Zelda game I didn't finish. But everything we've seen about this so far, like even, Damon, you said we're getting a new Legend of Zelda, and without even thinking, my body just started like tingling. This is a real thing. I get so excited for these games.
Excitement.
This one is gorgeous. I'm optimistic about it. I'm excited. So yeah, bring it on.
Yeah, me too. It's Zelda's one of those franchises for me that's not so much about the actual narrative as it is about the world, and I'm really excited for this next Zelda because what we've seen so far is this big open space and open world, and I'm excited to see where they take it for the next iteration. It looks so good.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah, that presentation we were just watching was from 2 years ago.
That was E3 2014 when they first showed it, and then they showed it again later that year at the Game Awards, where we got to see Aonuma and Shigeru Miyamoto with the first like Let's Play of the new Zelda. And at that time, the toughest thing for everyone watching, though, was it was off-screen. It wasn't that direct feed. We didn't really get a ton of details about it. It was just a lot of riding around. And that's not to downplay that.
Sure.
Like, it was still, like, that's a very important part of Zelda, but they didn't show how active the world can be.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something that we've all been wondering about.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is the first HD Zelda, the first Zelda to be built up in HD.
From the ground, Yeah.
What are you sort of hoping to see today?
I think it's really a matter of how populated this world is, how interactive it is, what you can do with, you know, the foliage, with wildlife, with just what you're seeing everywhere. Because I think one of the things that we've seen with video games since since Ocarina of Time kind of blew the doors open for what a 3D Zelda could be, is they've become bigger and crazier, more open world, more interactive. There's thousands of creatures everywhere. One of the things we saw in that first demo was Link, we believe it's Link, we don't really know yet, is walking along, and all of a sudden this gigantic creature comes up out of nowhere, and this huge fight sequence happens. And I want to know like how much stuff like that is going on. Like here, you look at this shot, where can you go? Can you go everywhere? Can you climb those trees?
Yeah, and that's what he said. I mean, Aonuma, when he made the presentation in 2014, said it really is about, like, you can go anywhere you can see. And every time they show this game, they do this thing about spinning the camera to just show you how big the world is. Like, the last time we saw any new footage of this game, it was like January in the lead up to Twilight Princess HD. And it was like another 5 or 10 seconds of footage, but it was, again, emphasizing that the world is very important. And I mean, we haven't seen a Zelda reveal like this where Link himself is not wearing what we expect Link to be wearing. You know what I mean? It's definitely a throwback. The colors are a throwback to Wind Waker, no question. But everything about it still seems like, okay, they've been talking about challenging convention. How many are they going to challenge?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, just the scale of that battle right there, it doesn't seem like it's a boss battle. But maybe it is. Maybe there are boss battles throughout the overworld. Like, how does this work? You know, I can't wait to see that.
Yeah, like I'm so used to dungeon boss battles, and that is so different. And I'm wondering, like, I don't know if that's scripted. I don't know if that's a real-time thing where you have to stop Epona, or if, I don't know if the horse is Epona, but I would love it to be.
You know, we talked about this on our E3 prediction show on Nintendo Voice Chat, which you can find on IGN, and we talked about how we're expecting them to name this thing. Like, Nintendo has to start that marketing machine for the next Zelda. And so you would expect them to do that. I think it's too early for Amiibo, honestly. Like, we don't know the release date for this thing. So it comes down to, you know,
that's why I wanted to ask, do you think we'll get a release date today?
I don't think so. I think NX is such an important thing to get a release date for first, I think.
But it should be less than a year away, right? If NX is supposed to be next March.
So we know day and date on both consoles? Do we know that?
We do. I mean, they said that when they announced that it was coming to NX. But here's the thing, right? When they said NX was coming out in March 2017, there was nothing to stop them from saying, and Zelda launches with it. But they didn't say that. So I think that question is still very much up in the air. And I don't know if between then and now necessarily that they have the answer. You know
I feel like all of that stuff has to come together at the same time. It has to. I mean, to really kick the doors open with the NX.
I think I want it to, but if March is the date for NX, we're getting a Zelda at that time. That just seems pretty uncharacteristic. But then again, Nintendo putting out a system in March is also uncharacteristic of the usual trends.
I mean, you can't. Nintendo, in their position in the universe right now, cannot launch a system with a Luigi's Mansion or a Nintendo Land. You need this guy or girl or horse, whoever you're playing in this game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But you also need a core Mario franchise title, and quite frankly, we haven't seen one of those in a while.
Right.
You also have a lot of other franchises in the Nintendo fold, like Metroid and others, that at the end of the day, if those are part of that launch lineup and Zelda ends up being a holiday 2017 title, it's going to hurt, but it's not going to kill me. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, I think I'm just trying to dial back those expectations, because I think if they had the chance to say it by now, they would have.
But this will be the Wii U version that we're seeing today.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, it goes back to what you were saying earlier, is Zelda is one of those franchises that it's the only thing we're seeing playable, but I'm not super mad or sad because Zelda is so huge.
Yeah.
And I'm not, like, I agree with you. I don't know that it's uncharacteristic for them to kind of lead with Zelda. I don't know if we're going to get like a package date or anything with that.
Yeah.
I'm more interested to see, like, they usually lead with a Mario or like a Mario Kart or like a core, like multi-character franchise sort of
Absolutely.
thing.
Yeah. And quite frankly, Zeldas take time to make. I mean, we know that, right? They delay. It hurts, but they delay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of the NX, one of our viewers reaches out on Twitter. Daniel Carey asks, will what we see today be Wii U gameplay or NX?
I think they made it very clear it's Wii U gameplay leading up to this. You won't. So here's the thing, right? During the live show, I would not be surprised if NX gets mentioned in some capacity.
Yeah.
But I don't think that they are ready quite to say very much about anything about that. I mean, it's not coming to E3. It's not here. We were hoping for that going into the show, that Nintendo was going to show up and show this thing, because all we knew was that NX was going to get talked about later this year.
Yeah, it's safe to assume that the NXs aren't hiding under a tarp in the back, powering the demos here, and then all we have to do is sneak behind their whole elaborate
You get
display.
an NX. You get an NX.
Oh man, they Oprah it. Oh man, that'd be amazing.
Yeah. I think it'll be Wii. I mean, no, I'm positive it'll be Wii U gameplay we see today.
Well, let's speculate about the NX, even though we know it's not going to be here at the show. Jose, when do you expect to actually get concrete information about the NX?
I think if they're serious about March, that has to start this summer. The latest this September, quite honestly. Like I think that,
which is like TGS time.
Yeah, which would be interesting, because Nintendo probably wouldn't do it through TGS, because they have a history of ignoring TGS. They don't participate in TGS. But at the same token, I think if they wanted to drop a major bomb at E3, they'd say NX, more details, and a date. But the problem with that is it would probably distract from the overall message being, here's our Zelda game.
Yeah, they're sort of incongruous things, right? I don't know which one they would lead into, and I'm wondering how they're going to handle the elephant in the room of the NX, because I do think you're going to diminish one announcement if you focus on both. And I don't know how they're going to marry those two things. It's really strange to me.
I think it'll all start to come together. We saw at the Ubisoft press conference yesterday, they mentioned Just Dance, and it's NX.
I think we think that was the first mention of
that was like the
NX
first
game.
Confirmed NX title from a third party, basically, that came out of E3.
Yeah, well, in North America, I mean, the next Dragon Quest is going to be on NX.
Right.
They did say that much, but again, like mum's the word, no real information on what it's going to be or what it's going to look like. They just showed,
so we know dev kits are out there. We know that you'll be able to play this new Zelda game on it. We don't know how that input might change.
Right.
We know that there's a dancing game that you can play with it somehow. So I don't know if that's holding the console and shaking it or...
Well, I mean, that's the assumption, but let's not forget that Just Dance has been coming out on other platforms that didn't have a Wii Remote, quite frankly. I mean, PlayStation 4 has it, PlayStation 3 had it, your Xboxes have it, although Xbox One was using your Kinect in order to keep up with you and make funny videos. So I don't think it's necessarily indicative of what NX will be, just that Ubisoft sees potential and will go for it, right? Just Dance and that franchise has been very lucrative for them. At one point, we heard it was actually outperforming the Wii version was still outperforming the Wii U version by a sizable margin, given that install base. So, they committed and said, hey, we're going to do this on NX.
Yeah, I'm very fascinated to see where this fits within the context of what the next year and a half of video games look like. We got a brand new console announcement from Microsoft yesterday. And that means that like next year is all of a sudden there's going to be 2 new console launches next year. A new cycle basically begins next year. And I'm really interested to see how the NX fits next to whatever they're working on, whatever Sony's working on that they didn't mention yesterday. This is really exciting.
10 teraflops.
Like anybody that knows what a teraflop is.
Reggie's gonna just say that.
Now, what about the new Paper Mario?
Okay.
We're going to see that this week?
One would think, because we don't really know much about that game, right?
Yeah.
Like, it was revealed, within the last couple months, much to the chagrin of the internet, quite frankly.
Oh, really?
Like, a lot of folks looked at it and were like, hey, this isn't the RPG I remember. What are you guys doing to Paper Mario? And especially people who were disappointed with Sticker Star feel like, okay, this can't be Sticker Star 2. If this could be a holiday game for Nintendo. Like, I don't know. They haven't committed to a date for it. Otherwise, it's just talking about, this color mechanic and how it works. Sort of that real-time action-adventure kind of thing. And again, just light on the RPG elements, which has been happening consistently with Paper Mario over the last few installments.
Yeah, if you look at Mario RPG, which started this all on the Super Nintendo, and how that sort of ended up branching out into the Mario and Luigi series and the Paper Mario series, both of them have gone on their own strange diagonals to the point that neither of them truly represent what that original game looked like. And I think people have been wanting that over and over. And especially like the original Paper Mario we got is still very different than Sticker Star or something. So
1,000 Year Door was fantastic. People love that game.
Yeah, I think it can be unfair to hold Nintendo to the nostalgia standard to say, like, we want back the RPG we remember, because Nintendo constantly kind of goes in these weird directions and people are surprised, and then you end up loving it. I feel like especially I remember with Wind Waker, people were so upset about the art style, right? Yeah. And that's my favorite art style in any Zelda. Yeah. And so while I would like to see RPG elements from the new Paper Mario, if it's not Sticker Star 2, because we all have opinions on Sticker Star, I have faith that if they take it in a different direction, even if it's not the RPG direction, it'll be something worthwhile, at least worth checking out. I'm excited to see more from it.
I think the fundamental problem turned into that, okay, so Mario RPG was successful, and then from that were spawned Mario and Luigi RPG series, and then the Paper Mario series, and they were both RPGs. I mean, at the end of the day, how many RPGs does Mario need? And so you see this sort of...
That's a good point, yeah.
You see this sort of experimentation with the Paper Mario style, because there are sort of action elements that they've been trying. They tried it with Super Paper Mario. They tried to Sticker Star, change things up. And so at the end of the day, Paper Mario Color Splash has to prove what it is and if it's fun. And hopefully they do that at E3.
We got to take a quick commercial break, but right after this, we'll be back talking more Nintendo. Stay tuned. Welcome back, everybody. IGN Live at E3 2016. Remember, you can be part of the show. Tweet your questions at IGN with hashtag IGN Live. No, with hashtag E3 2016. Just like this young lady or gentleman did, who's coming up on the screen right now.
Rise from the Twitterverse.
Right now.
Come to us.
Alex Osborne asks, will today be the day Nintendo finally announces Mother 3?
Alex, you work for us. You should not be abusing the system, first of all.
Nepotism.
Hi, Alex.
That's a great question. I mean, last year at E3, when Nintendo had their World Championship going on, before the festivities, they announced Earthbound Beginnings, which was the NES game that did not get released, or was localized, but was never released, right? It eventually made its way out of Nintendo through either auctions or yard sales or who knows. But the Earthbound community is a very passionate community. It's one that I absolutely adore, and I love everything that those guys do. And I think it would be great for Nintendo to take that next step with Earthbound. I mean, we've said it on our show. This would be an easy thing for you guys to do, and it would make a lot of people happy.
But you know, this is why I love that dream-like wonder, borderline insanity that lives in all of us here and every Nintendo fan out there, is that Nintendo's like, all right, so we're focusing on Zelda, and we're like, yeah, but what about everything else? We're like, no, seriously, just Zelda. And we're like, no, I don't believe you. You're lying. You're lying to my face right now. There's more than that, and I'm going to find out.
That's not true. That's impossible.
So you're saying there's a chance.
Yeah. No, and I think it just comes from, like, you dial down the expectations so low. Like, you have to have some small surprises. And we've talked about that, right? Like, you don't want this to just be the Zelda show, although Zelda's an important game. Zelda was the game that was missing last year. If Zelda had been part of that presentation, we would not have been also disappointed with what Nintendo chose to show at E3 last year. Let's face it, we know that.
Yeah.
Well, sorry to say, speaking of being disappointed with Nintendo's E3 last year, what about Metroid Prime Federation Force?
Why'd you do that?
Sorry, Zach told me to do it. It's Zach's fault.
Okay, no, let's break it down.
Okay.
Once you realize this is not a new Metroid Prime proper game, and you know this is not a 2D Metroid starring Samus, get all of those expectations out of the way. What we're left here is with something that I think could be cool and could be interesting. I was actually a big fan of Metroid Prime Hunters on the DS.
The multiplayer?
Not so
Because the single player on that was a little lacking, but no disrespect, of course.
Well, I like the novel idea of having like a Metroid Prime game, the handheld first-person shooter on a portable system like that. And this one's a little more multiplayer focused. We do know there's a single-player campaign involved. But we don't know a ton about it. And the immediate reaction was, that's not Metroid Prime, and people got really angry.
No, and it definitely has a perspective, and it involves a group of characters. The Federation forces have been in other Metroid Prime games. They're kind of lame in that they constantly get beat up in each game. Like, you don't see the Federation forces necessarily succeed. But the angle of a multiplayer game set in the Metroid universe is not something we all expect, but it's something that I think is worth us giving a try. Now, let's be fair. Blast Ball last year at E3 was not the way to unveil this game, and it set off a lot of anger because it isn't as cool as Rocket League, and it didn't look as fun as what you would expect a game like that to be, because it's basically, soccer multiplayer in a Metroid universe.
Yeah, which is like the weirdest word association. No one would ever be like, hey, Metroid Prime, what are you thinking of? I mean, soccer.
It does turn into a ball.
That's true.
Yeah, I think I think it's the expectation of what you remember from Nintendo versus, I mean, when they come out with the Metroid Prime name and it's associated in that universe, but it's not the same gameplay, people are bound to get disappointed. But I think you have to hold back that disappointment and think, is this, regardless of what the name is this going to be a fun game?
And the important thing being, and I hate to say this, but that they're thinking about it. Like, sure, this is not a Samus adventure. This is not, Metroid Prime is judged as one of the greatest video games of all time, right? And it was something that Retro did that they got very right the first time, and then with each sequel, it was sort of right or good, but it was slightly diminishing returns at the same time. They were excellent adventures, but none of them beat the original. And so we have this situation where, okay, so Nintendo's experimenting with a multiplayer game set in the Metroid universe. They're thinking about Metroid. Fans got upset and immediately voiced their displeasure, but you know what? That doesn't mean Metroid's dead. That doesn't mean Samus will never show up again. And yes, Other M was not the game some of us wanted, but wait till they give it another shot. The problem is they take too long. And games
That's
are
the problem
hard.
with every video game, but
All right, moving on to Pokemon. Pokemon Sun and Moon are here this week, right?
They're not playable, but we're going to see something of it. And
Treehouse Live, right?
That's right.
Treehouse Live.
Kicking off with it.
I'm really curious what they're going to show, because they've already revealed the starters. They revealed all the characters. They have this cool Rotom Pokedex with this QR code integration. I'm wondering what's next to show? Is it going to be more gameplay?
Well, they've said live gameplay, so
yeah,
that leaves to open to interpretation of, okay, so then what is the feature that you're going to show off? Because you're going to show off something that's going to get us excited, right? But talk a little bit more about those legendaries. I mean, wow, like they look so good.
Yeah, they look amazing. So Solgaleo and Lunala are the two Sun and Moon, respectively, legendaries, and they have these interesting ability counter moves and abilities. So they have their signature moves that they show off in the most recent trailer, kind of disregard the opponent Pokemon's ability, and combined with their own abilities, they pretty much shut down another Pokemon. And I think that's really interesting. And I think the battle system there could be really interesting using them in battle, especially because for competitive play in 2016, they introduced you can use 2 legendaries, which is new. People aren't really a fan of that, but I think when they introduce cool mechanics with legendaries, that kind of offsets my disappointment in the overpowered nature of competitive play. So there's a lot going on there.
I think you're onto something where they're out to sort of check that system, because introducing those legendaries to competitive play does upend the T-table, right? Because then you have this arsenal that could be a major problem for competitive play, you know?
I mean, the competitive scene in Pokemon is already very small. The metagame is pretty limited. There's maybe 30 Pokemon to choose from that you're going to be.
And they're always Kangaskhan.
And it's always Kangaskhan because it's the best Mega. Don't ever forget it. But I think it's interesting that they kind of introduce a more. I mean, not that it's not skillful to play with legendaries, but I think these two in particular, they are very interesting to me. Even though their abilities are just reskins of existing abilities, like Clear Body. Full Metal Body is Solgalea's ability, and it's just Clear Body, which is something we already have. And same with Lunala's, it's just multi-scale. So. But I think in combination with their moves, it'll make playing with them really interesting. I'm really excited to catch one.
Absolutely. Side note, can we really quick talk about Damon Hatfield's shirt today? While we're talking about Pokemon.
Oh, I didn't notice.
Can we get a look at this?
I just thought it would be appropriate.
It is. This is awesome.
To wear today. It's just my Pikachu shirt.
It's covered in little Pikachus.
Yeah.
It is just the best shirt. I love this so much, Damon.
Yeah, I'm super jealous. I don't own it.
There you go. Nice. Own it. Love it.
What about Pokemon Go?
Oh, okay. So they've already said that Wednesday they're going to be talking with Niantic about Pokemon Go. We got to play it.
Yes.
It's a very interesting experiment for Pokemon because it is obviously about Pokemon, but it is differentiating itself from what you know of the 3DS game. Sure, there's collecting. Sure, there's battling. But you will do those things in a different way.
Yeah, and I think this is totally a hard right from competitive discussion. I mean, this is... It's in keeping with the spirit of adventure in Pokemon. It reminds me of what it felt like to play Pokemon as a child when I had no idea what EVs were. I had no idea how to train a competitive team. It was just about setting off and discovering a new land and discovering what Pokemon were there and not knowing what you were going to find and catch and see. And that's what it feels like to me. It feels like I'm setting off on my own adventure. Niantic is all about encouraging people to get out and explore their city and explore the real world. But with this Pokemon element, I'm going to be walking around San Francisco way more than I already do.
Yeah, and Niantic learned a lot from Ingress, right? Like this is all based on a lot of that collected data. They want to make it so that you're always hunting for Pokemon in safe spaces. They're not trying to, get you mugged in an alley or something trying to catch a Pikachu.
This trailer literally shows a guy going down an alley.
That's not going to happen.
So if you don't know, Ingress was Niantic's previous game. They crowdsourced a lot of the location data for Ingress. So it's a lot of people giving feedback on, here's a commemorative park bench in my hometown. It's really small, but like this is the main place that people go, and this is our big landmark. Or people might say like we don't go to that part of town. Like don't put anything there. So I think that's really interesting.
A ton of exercise because of this game because you're not just collecting Pokemon. You're also collecting items. You're collecting. There's these certain points, Pokespots, I think is what they call them.
Pokestops.
Pokestops. Thanks, not spots. Pokestops where you'll basically get like Pokeballs and eggs that you have to walk in order to hatch. You get an incubator. You're going to get a ton of exercise if you're playing this game. You can't fool it by getting in a car.
Yeah, you can't cheat. You can't get on your bike and hatch an egg more quickly like you can in the 3DS games.
Give your phone to your cousin and tell them to run around for 10 minutes.
Maybe that's your way to go.
No, that would probably work.
You have to walk. It was measured in kilometers for us, so we hatched an egg that only required a kilometer of walking.
And it was a Pikachu.
It was a Pikachu.
Nice. Yeah. We're just a few minutes away from Nintendo's presentation starting. Hopefully they start on time. But we have another Twitter question we can bring up now. This one comes from Felipe. Any chance Retro Studios makes an appearance? What are those guys up to?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I'll put that to bed right here. I would be very surprised by that. Yes, Retro has been working on a game, mysterious, whatever it is, since Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze wrapped. We know that much. But in terms of being ready to talk about it, I would not be surprised if that is in an X game, honestly.
For sure.
I don't think Nintendo is dedicating a ton of resources towards Wii U at the moment. It could be something 3DS related, but that also just feels too small when you have a studio like Retro who can make something as colorful and as beautiful and as as good as that Donkey Kong platforming game. Something that's that hard or difficult or challenging or still fun. You want to put those guys on something really good for their follow-up, and I just don't think that it's something small.
Donkey Kong Country Returns, a lot of people don't know this, it's one of the best-selling Wii U games. Like, it did incredibly well. And then Tropical Freeze less so because of a smaller install base. I would kind of like to see them move away from that franchise and maybe hand it to somebody else. I mean, we've got no shortage of Donkey Kong games in our life, but if they can get back into another Metroid, I'd be super excited with that.
Well,
or even try something completely new.
Aren't several members of that team working on ReCore?
Yeah.
From Microsoft?
Some folks from, some key Metroid Prime talent spun off and started their own studio called Armature, and they are working on ReCore along with Keiji Inafune, and we found out yesterday Joe Staten is working on ReCore as well, the former Bungie writer who joined Microsoft Game Studios. The rumor mill says Retro's next game is new IP. That is what is sort of the gossip in the streets.
I like it.
I'd welcome that,
let's see what that is when the time is right.
Would that have anything to do with this surprise Nintendo game for November? What is that?
Surprise Nintendo game for November.
Could there be?
Oh, could there be?
Yeah.
Well, great question. That could come down to, is it Paper Mario Color Splash? That's one candidate. It's a game that's announced. It's a game that we don't know when it's coming out. I think today, hopefully, they paint a little bit more of a clearer picture. Nintendo, though, at E3 has had a history, especially for the last 2 or 3 shows, that they will come to E3 and announce a game. A couple years ago was Super Mario 3D World. The year after that, sadly, it was Mario Tennis, which ended up being the holiday game because Star Fox got delayed. And then there was also Animal Crossing was a surprise announcement, the board game that ended up being a boring game,
Amiibo
sadly.
Festival,
you can find the Amiibo anywhere. Yeah, that was your headline idea.
That was my strapline.
Exactly.
Way to go.
So the last year was not a great year for that.
No.
I would hope they would pull that because, again, the expectations are so low, but I almost can't take that for granted, but I think they'll have a surprise. I mean, why not?
Yeah, why not?
Ladies and gentlemen, we are just a couple minutes away from the reveal of the next Legend of Zelda, which is a pretty big deal.
There it is again.
Steve Varner writes in asking, what differences do you think there could be between the NX and Wii U versions of Zelda?
Depends on what NX is. I mean, we don't know, right? Like, if NX is sort of handheld first, that's something. If NX is a home console first, that's something. If it's both, that's something else. Like, we really don't know much, so there's not much to go on here.
Yeah, it's like, what is the controller like? Is it going to be movement-based, waggle-based? Or
Does it cook breakfast?
What is it? I don't know enough about it.
I mean, the entire game could be mirror-moded, like the way Twilight Princess was. If you look at the differences between, I mean, that's like the closest example we have to something like this, right? Was Twilight Princess launching a few weeks after on GameCube, but roughly in the same window, and having slight motion controls and having the world flipped. And those are the major differences in that game.
But through the Wii Remote and sword swinging, they tried to bring you closer to the action. Like, it was very different than Twilight Princess on GameCube, which was the better version because it followed the controller setup. It was developed for that, quite frankly. It wasn't made for one-to-one motion the way Skyward Sword was. But at the same time, I think that they were able to still pull players in a little further to that experience and ultimately leverage the strength of what Wii was, being that motion control.
Sorry, the lawnmower's outside.
Yeah, what's up with that? It's Link.
Yeah, it's kind of
Is it starting?
New game mechanic confirmed. Link is a lawnmower.
He always was a lawnmower, if you think about it.
Yeah.
It is 9 a.m. The Nintendo presentation should be starting any moment now. A few Nintendo-centric series we haven't talked about at all yet. Monster Hunter. Any Monster Hunter this week?
Big Monster Hunter fan. They've said Generations is a game that's coming out in July. I think it's the 15th. They're going to be marketing that game, showing more cool things about it. It's a celebration of 10 years of Monster Hunter, which is a franchise that I adore. It's a hardcore action RPG, fighting big bosses that are no joke, quite frankly. So that's going to be fun.
Yeah.
I also have Tokyo Mirage Session coming out later. Basically, the rest of their show is going to be promoting the stuff that's coming out within the next 3 to 4 months. And then hopefully announcing something for November.
What about F-Zero, Punch-Out, Kid Icarus, Kirby, all the rest of our old friends?
We just got a Kirby
We just
game.
saw Kirby.
Give us another one. Make a bunch of Kirby's. Send out 100 Kirby's.
Oh my gosh.
What about
They did that.
Dragon Quest 7.
Dragon Quest 7.
Yeah.
Here we go.
From
Nope.
Nintendo.
Here we go. Enjoy the show.
Before we
Oh,
begin,
man.
we want to extend our condolences to all the victims of the 2 tragic events in Orlando. Our thoughts are with their families and their communities. And this includes Christina Grimmie, who was killed in the earlier incident and was scheduled to visit us here at our E3 booth this week. At Nintendo, we try to make our fans smile. But this week at E3, we'll also be shedding a few tears. Please join me in a moment of silence. If you've been a fan of Nintendo over the years, you'll know that the Nintendo experience is different at every E3. We always look for the best way to introduce our most important content. And this year is no different. And that's why we're coming to you directly from our show booth on the set of Nintendo Treehouse Live. On the other side of the wall behind me, the finishing touches are being made before we open it up to thousands of industry insiders in just a couple of hours. That space will immerse visitors in the world of a single game, the newest entry in the Legend of Zelda franchise. What's in store is an entirely new format for a Zelda game. 3 decades ago, the first Zelda game changed the way millions of people thought about video games. And this week, you'll discover a game that could change that thinking again. Here's the first look at what awaits.
Open your eyes. Open your eyes. Wake up, Link.
The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild introduces you to a Hyrule that is truly seamless, where simply moving from one place to another begins to create what may be the adventure of a lifetime. And not only is this new world vast, but it feels alive. It teems with adventure. Throughout Link's quest, Hyrule will be a resource, an ally, an enemy, and always a place for discovery and wonder. This is easily one of the biggest experiences ever created by Nintendo. And today, you're going to get a close-up look. The portion of the game we're highlighting at E3, a wide-ranging plateau, may seem huge. In fact, no one here this week will be able to explore all of it. But even then, that plateau is only a tiny fraction of the full game map. We'll be devoting almost this full first day of Nintendo Treehouse Live coverage to just this one environment. Then, in the future, you'll learn more about the story, the characters, and the ways in which the boundaries of all previous Zelda titles are being broken. But in the end, full understanding and full immersion will only come when you experience it for yourself. However, before we show you this biggest adventure for Wii U and NX, we're going to show you the biggest new adventure coming up for Nintendo 3DS. As you've heard, there are two new core Pokemon titles on the way on November 18th, Pokemon Sun and Pokemon Moon. As always, you'll pick which new starter Pokemon to partner with. But which one to choose? Exactly what kind of battling awaits you? And what does the new Alola region have in store for players? Well, we figured there was no one better equipped to answer those questions than the two key developers of the game itself, producer Junichi Matsuda and director Shigeru Omori of Game Freak. So before we devote the rest of the day to The Legend of Zelda, I'm going to turn it over to the Treehouse team, along with Mr. Matsuda and Mr. Omori, to show you what it's like to start as a Pokemon trainer in the first ever live gameplay demonstration of Pokemon Sun and Pokemon Moon. So let's jump in. Take it away, Sam and Terry.
Thanks, Reggie. And thanks to everyone watching for tuning in and joining us for another Nintendo Treehouse Live at E3. We're really excited to get started. So as Reggie mentioned, I'm Sam from Nintendo, and joining me up here, I've got Terry from Nintendo and my colleague David from TPCI. And we've also got our very special guests, Masuda-san and Omori-san from Game Freak, who are joining us to chat about Pokemon Sun and Pokemon Moon. Now, Pokemon fans already know that you guys have a very long history of working with the Pokemon franchise. But could you tell our viewers a little bit more about what you guys are doing specifically with Pokemon Sun and Pokemon Moon?
2人ともポケモンの開発に関わってすごく歴史が長いんですけれども、今回のポケモンサンとポケモンムーンでの役割について教えてもらえますか？
そうですね。今年ポケモンが20周年ということで、ここから先のポケモン、未来に向けてのポケモンということで、私はプロデュースに徹して、今回茂大森が、ディレクターという新しい体制で取り組みました。
So this is the 20th anniversary of Pokemon, as I think many of you know. And when thinking about the future of Pokemon, I've decided that I would be the producer on this title, and pass over the director role over to Shigeru Omori here for Pokemon Sun and Moon.
今回、ポケットモンスターサンムーンの、ディレクターをしました大森と申します。今回はディレクターとして開発全体に携わりました。
So I'm Shigeru Omori from Game Freak, and I was the director on this game, overseeing the entire development of it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I know you brought some art assets that we can take a look at to introduce folks to the Pokemon Moon, Pokemon Sun collection. But first, we've actually got some video footage that you brought for us. So folks watching, if you sit tight, we're actually going to get that queued up for you so you can take a look. right, so there's a lot for us to talk about just from the footage there. The first thing I'd like to actually ask you is if you could tell us a little bit more about the background of why you went with Sun and Moon as the titles for these games.
今の映像で結構話す内容というのが出てきたんですけれども、まずはそうですね、サンとムーンのタイトルについて由来をちょっと教えてもらえますか。
はい。私たちの住んでいるこの地球っていうところには生き物がたくさんいるわけですけども、その中で、その生き物に対してとても影響がある、そのコアとなっているものっていうのはやっぱり太陽と月っていうのは非常に大切なものだと思うんですね。で今回はその、生命を、より魅力的に見せていきたいっていう思いもあって、その一番影響のあるもの、サンとムーンっていうのをタイトルにしました。
So there's a variety of meanings behind the titles, but one of the main things is that, for example, for here on Earth, obviously, the sun really is the source of all life on this planet, and in the same way in the Pokemon world, it's also the source of life on the planet, and the moon also affects all of our lives here as well. And with this game, we really wanted to express this kind of feeling of a region really teeming with life, so we felt that Sun and Moon would be an appropriate title for the games.
I think especially thinking about these big elemental forces, sun and the moon, we also need to talk about those legendaries that are on the packaging, because I think folks are going to really want to hear a little bit more about what they can expect from those Pokemon.
そういう太陽と月の存在の多分表しにもなってるんじゃないかなと思うんですけど、このかっこいい伝説のポケモンについて、話してもらえますか。
そうですね。サンに出てくる、ソルガレオっていうのは太陽の使者で、ムーンの方のルナーナは月の使者として伝えられているんですけども、今まで、以上に物語自体にかなり、関係してくる2匹になりますんで、楽しみにしていてほしいなと思います。
So in the games, the legends say that Solgaleo and Lunala are the emissaries of the sun and the moon, respectively. And these two legendary Pokemon actually, they kind of play a unique role. They tie into the story in a unique way that we really haven't done with pairs of legendary Pokemon before. So I think fans will be really excited about it.
I think there's a really interesting spiritual element that we get in these games. I won't talk about that too much yet because I know we're saving some surprises. But on the subject of legendaries, I know you recently had an event in Taiwan where you revealed some news about another legendary Pokemon folks remember from XY and what they might expect from that Pokemon in these games. We can maybe talk about that a little bit too.
ちょっと伝説ポケモンの話で、先日ちょっと台湾で、XY に登場した伝説ポケモンについてのニュースっていうのをちょっと発表されたと思うんですけれども、それちょっと話してもらえますか。
そうですね。いよいよ10% ジガルデとパーフェクトジガルデが、サンムーンに登場するというお知らせが、出ましたけども、今回このジガルデも活躍するっていうのが、ポイントかなと思います。
So Zygarde, the Pokemon that one of the legendary Pokemon that appeared in originally in Pokemon X and Y. It just recently showed off their the 10% form and complete form in the games, and these Pokemon these forms will appear in Pokemon Sun and Moon, kind of in a special way that I think people will be excited about.
Oh, they look so cool. And actually, here, since we're looking at a little bit of the Alola region in the background, so it's probably a good chance to talk maybe in a little bit more detail about the Alola region and what players can maybe expect there.
あと今回冒険の舞台となるそのアローラ地方について、これどんな地方なのかっていうのをちょっと教えてもらえますか。
そうですね。今回のアローラ地方なんですけども、他の陸地とつながっていない、地方となっています。なので、アローラ地方固有のポケモンが住んでいます。アローラ地方っていう名前なんですけども、名前の由来としては、命を育みで、命を育み生命力にあふれる大地という意味を込めてこの名前にしました。
So the Alola region, as you can see, is made up these 4 islands. It has a man-made island as well, but it's really this region that's just like teeming with life, and that's actually behind the name of the region itself. We have this meaning of kind of region like a miraculous region overflowing with this life force that can support all this different life. And
Yeah, I think it's really interesting since it's not connected to any of the other regions. You've got this really interesting area of isolation, and we're seeing all these Pokemon that nobody's ever run into before, and it's almost kind of feels like the Galapagos Islands, where you've got this really interesting remote area where all these other creatures are popping up, and you've got new Pokemon and a really cool environment as well to explore.
陸地とつながってないので、他の大陸とつながってないので、やっぱこういろんな、変わった、生命が、たくさん登場するんじゃないかなというふうに思ってるんですけども、そうですね。
そうですね。期待しててください。
Yeah, I think people will be surprised. There's some cool things to see in there.
There, I've been playing it at work, and I'm very excited to get a look at it.
会社でちょっと遊んでるんですけど、やっぱこうすごい楽しみにできるものは多いと思います。はい。
And actually, since we're talking about new Pokemon, is there anything more that you can tell our viewers about the 3 starters that they'll be choosing from in this game?
今回の最初のパートナーと3体のポケモンなんですけれども、これにこの3体について教えてもらえますか？
そうですね。もうどの3体ももう可愛いんですけども、今回特に動きについてすごく意識して作ってまして、バトル中だったりとか、いろんな時にこう動きが可愛くなるようなデザインとして作られています。
So of course they're all very cute, but one of the things they're really focused on with these 3 in particular is making their movements really cute when they're represented in the game. Like for example, in battle and other parts in the game, you see them moving around, and they're really cute. Kind of make you want to reach out and touch them almost.
あとやっぱりこう世界中の人が見て、こう分かりやすい、デザインであったりとか、タイプのカラー、草タイプだったらグリーンが入っていたりとかっていうその分かりやすさっていうのをやっぱり最初の3匹は大事にしています。
And another thing we always pay attention to or really focus on with the initial Pokemon that you choose for your partner is making them kind of universally relatable, so people from around the world will be able to look at these Pokemon and relate with them very easily, and also very easy to understand. Like for example, the grass type Pokemon is going to be green, obviously, so being careful with the colors.
I think what folks have seen already from the animations that we've shown in a little bit of video footage we've been able to share, they have a lot of personality. I actually picked Poplio because I'm a hardcore water starter fan. My first was a Squirtle, and I've stuck with them. But I've been having a great time so far, and we're looking forward to seeing what other folks pick when I get into the starters as well.
最初ゼニガメ選んだので水タイプのこの足回りを絶対今回いいですね。どれもすごい個性的なので悩むんじゃないかなと思います。
It's interesting actually what you talked about with the design of the starter Pokemon, and I think they also really fit nicely in with the kind of tropical climate and environment we've got. And I know that's something that you worked in with the design of the player characters as well this time around.
今回南の国っていうような設定になってて、今のポケモンもすごくそれに合ってる感じだと思うんですけど、今回の主人公のデザインもやっぱそれを意識されている部分ありますか？
そうですね。やっぱり暖かい国っていうのを表現する、地方ですね、表現するためにかなり軽装にしています。
So yeah, obviously the region this time, the climate there is extremely warm, so we wanted to make sure that the characters, the designs were more lightly dressed than maybe other designs had in the past.
I think fans will notice the proportions are different, especially when we get into gameplay in a couple seconds here. They're going to see it's a little different how they're used to seeing their characters in the game.
あと今回ちょっとこの後実機プレイを見せるんですけれども、ちょっとあれですね、頭身がちょっと変わったっていう話ですよね。
そうですね。よりこう没入感高めようと思って頭身上がってますね、今回。
So yeah, we changed the proportions this time to be more realistic. We really wanted to kind of increase this sense of immersion, and I think you'll see that when we get into the game.
Yeah, I don't know if I can talk about this yet, but sharp-eyed viewers probably noticed that both of those pieces of art, there was an interesting bracelet that the players were wearing. I don't know if we can, probably can't talk about that just yet.
喋れないかも、あんまり話せないかもしれないですけど、すごい目の鋭い人は腕輪みたいなものってつけてるんですけど。
ありました。
ありました。
For later time, maybe we can talk about that. But I think we've probably kept folks in anticipation long enough. So Terry, you want to jump in and show us some gameplay?
I'm excited for this.
待たせてるので、早速
Here we go.
So I just want to mention as we get into gameplay here, this game is still in development. So folks, everything you see here might not be exactly what you're going to see in the final release of the game, but I think we can give you a really good sense of what the game is going to look and feel like as we get started.
最初のものではなくて開発中のものです。
そうですね。こんな早い段階で実はライブでも行うのは初めてで、どんなポケモンが出るかっていうのもちょっと世界初公開のポケモンも登場するかもしれないんで、ちょっとドキドキしますねこれ。
So this is actually the first time for us to show a Pokemon game at this stage in development, kind of via live gameplay. So not really sure exactly what we're going to encounter in this. We may see some all new Pokemon that haven't been revealed before.
Oh, I'm keeping my fingers crossed. That'd be really cool. Actually, as we get started here, Masuda-san and Mori-san, can you tell us a little bit about the story and the background of what's going on right now in the game?
今ここでちょっと主人公は何をしている場面になるんでしょうか。
そうですね、主人公はですねアローラ地方に引っ越してきたばかりという設定になっています。で今回すでに、少し進めていまして、最初のポケモンはすでに、もらっています。で今から、リリータウンというところでお祭りが開催されるので、そこに向かうところです。
So at this point in the game, it's a little bit slightly into it, but it's the player actually had just moved to the Alola region the other day, and one day previous to where we are in the game, he actually received his first partner Pokemon for his adventure. And right now, we're actually on the way to a neighboring town where there's a festival.
Oh. And I think here you can see what we were talking about earlier. Oh, you're just jumping into the long grass.
誰がどんなポケモンが出ますかね。びっくりする。レディバーですね。アローラ地方には他の地方のポケモンも出てきます。
So as you can see in the Alola region, obviously it's not just new Pokemon that are unique to the Alola region, but from other regions you see Pokemon.
今回トレーナーとポケモンっていうものもしっかり描きたいと思ってトレーナーが一緒にポケモンの後ろにいるっていうところを再現してますね。
And as you can probably see here in battle, you see the trainer is actually standing behind the Pokemon in the battle. So we really wanted to express this feeling of the trainer always being with his or her Pokemon.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that in a little bit more detail here because I feel like there's so much that you've done with the way the battle looks in this game to make it feel really intense and really immersive. I was wondering if we could talk a little bit more about that with what you did with the lighting and the dynamic camera angles here.
やっぱ没入感を高めるっていう話もちょっと出てきたんですけども、やっぱ今回すごい演出とか見た目が違ってて光の表現とかもありますね。
そうですね。ちょっと時間によって影が長くなったりとかっていうのも入ってたりしますね。
So yeah, there's some cool lighting effects that we're doing here where, for example, like a shadow you see it's in the evening right now, so it's a bit longer, but depending on the time of day, the lighting will kind of affect the mood of the battle.
I think here Terry's kind of staying still for a second to let us see how the camera is moving around. And this is something that'll just happen for you if you're staying still in the battle for a moment, and you really get a good chance to get a look at these Pokemon and the area that you're in and the environment.
こうやって一回テリー今止まってくれてるんですけれども、こうカメラの演出を見せたりとか、結構やっぱこういうかっこいいカメラの演出があって、すごいこうバトルフィールドの全体を見渡せるような感じになってますね。
今回カメラもすごいダイナミックさっていうのを非常に意識して演出を入れていますね。
So yeah, there's definitely some cool. We tried to make the camera feel really dynamic in the battles this time around.
And actually, as Terry gets started in the battle here, I was wondering if we could talk a little bit more about the different changes you've made to the battle interface. I know there's a lot here that's really interesting, which makes the game really accessible to new players. Maybe this is their first Pokemon game, but it's also, I think, really satisfying as someone who's played a lot of Pokemon games. It feels really good, the changes that you've made here.
結構ベテランにもやっぱ初心者にも結構優しい感じのインターフェースにちょっと今まで違う印象があるんですけれども、どういう変更を加えたんでしょうか。
そうですね。今回とても親切なというか説明がいろいろ入れています。例えばそのインフォメーションボタンがあるんですけども、そちらをタッチすると今その技がどんな技かというのを一目で分かるようになっています。
So for example, yeah, we really tried to focus on making it really accessible and easy to understand. You saw in the moves there, Terry just pressed the little I button or the icon that's on the move, and you can go into a detailed explanation of what that move actually does.
I think it's been so helpful. There are just so many Pokemon that you have to keep in mind now as you're battling. It's so nice to be able to pull it up, and if maybe you don't quite remember what something does, being able to just pop it up really fast there, it's like you don't have to use that information, but if maybe your memory's not as good as it used to be and you need it, it's so nice to be able to pull that up and take a look.
ちょっとこの技はどういう効果があるんだっけみたいな、ちょっと忘れてもらって、
そうですね。
できるようになって大丈夫ですね。
例えば今レディバの方をタッチしてもらいますと、今どんな状態かというのが分かるようになっています。
So actually, you can see you can tap on the 2D Pokemon icon that's at the touch screen and see how its parameters actually just got changed because of the effect of a move.
今まで全部覚えてなきゃいけなかったんですけど、これで一目で分かるようになっています。
So as you just said, like a lot of things that you had to keep in your head, you had to remember before, now visualized on the interface itself.
All right, let's see how this battle goes. Are you planning on trying to capture this?
I'm going to begin my quest to catch them all.
Okay, good luck.
全部捕まえないと。
捕まえて。
Yeah, get it. You can do it, I think.
So just to bring up real quickly, for folks who maybe haven't played a Pokemon game before, battling Pokemon is really at the core of what the series is all about. You're going out into the world with your Pokemon, battling. Oh, this is the most stressful moment. Nice. Okay, so we're able to catch this Pokemon. But it's a really interesting game if you're interested in battle and strategy and collecting all these really interesting Pokemon that you meet. And Popplio leveled up. Good job.
Yay.
And it was nice there too, seeing how the level up change.
ちょっとあれですね、レベルアップの演出もちょっと変わりましたね。
そうですね。
Oh, and this is actually something that we should talk about as well. Can you tell our viewers a little bit more about what they're seeing on the upper screen
これ
here?
今ちょっと図鑑に登録されたんですけども、これちょっと違う感じがありますね。
そう
比べて
ですね。今回図鑑の遊びとして、埋めたくなるっていう要素をすごくかき立てるようにしました。で、白いモンスターボールなんですけども、実はあそこが空きスペースになっていて、例えばその捕まえたポケモンの進化後か、それとももしかしたらペアとなるポケモンが出てくるかもしれないっていう風に演出しています。いろいろこうどんなポケモンがいるんだろうって考えながら育てたり捕まえたりしてほしいなと思います。
So one of the things we wanted to do with the Pokedex this time was really encourage players to, again, really want to catch them all, really fill up the Pokedex. And one way we've done that, as you can see, there's the Ladybug just got registered, but next to it is a white Pokeball icon. And what that does, it indicates there's an empty space, which means that either it has an evolution or maybe there's another Pokemon out there that kind of forms a pair with it. So that'll kind of encourage players to really want to fill up that empty space, go out and search and catch all different types of Pokemon and kind of complete their Pokedex.
Yeah, it's especially exciting, I think, when you find one and there's lots of white Pokeballs and you're just like, oh, okay.
So it's
We've got a lot of work to do.
たくさん白いモンスターボールがあるとやっぱこう捕まえたくなりますよね。
そうですね。
さあ次は
Who we got? Oh, nice. One of the new ones.
これは新ポケモンですね。ヤングースというポケモンです。いつもお腹を空かしていて、お腹が減っていくとこう怒りっぽくなっちゃうっていうポケモンらしいですね。
So as you can see, this is the new Pokemon called Young Goose. It's always hungry, so it's always getting hungry, and then so it's looking for food. But whenever it's hungry, it also gets very aggressive.
I love its face. It's so cute.
I like the colors.
I feel kind of bad for it though. I feel like you just throw it a bag of chips or something and it'd be like, thank you.
Always hungry.
Oh, it's
いい感じですね。
Oh, getting close there.
もう捕まるんじゃないですか。
You'll probably be able to catch this one.
We're on our way.
Oh,
Good luck.
That's 2 down.
2匹ですね。
Yeah, this is always like the most stressful seconds in any Pokemon player's life. Just the, oh.
揺れがいつもそうですね。
Nice. And actually, this will give us a chance to maybe take a look at the Pokedex. So we've got a new Pokemon to check out. So you've got some interesting changes coming to the Pokedex in this game. Can you tell us a little bit more about what fans can expect from the new Pokedex?
今回図鑑がちょっと変わった感じで新しくなってるんですけども、この今回の図鑑についてちょっともうちょっと話してもらえますか。
そうですね。今回ロトム図鑑というものがあります。このロトム図鑑ですけども、ポケモンを捕まえる情報をくれたりとか、冒険で次どこに行けばいいんだろうっていうことを教えてくれたり、冒険を常にサポートしてくれる図鑑です。
So actually, one of the new things in this game is that we have this item called the Rotom Pokedex, and Rotom kind of inhabits your Pokedex and actually helps you in your adventure. So it'll tell you information about Pokemon that you really want to catch, or give you tips about how to catch Pokemon, and also kind of guide you on your adventure where you should go next, for example. So it serves as a really cool supportive function.
今下画面が黒いんですけど、あそこにロトム図鑑が入ります。
So right here, actually, we're still really early in the game. We don't have the Rotom Pokedex, so the touchscreen is just black on the bottom, but you'll get it later.
And here, actually, this is a great chance. If we just take a quick circle around, we can show off not only the trainer's proportions, but also the movement is a little bit different than what folks who played previous Pokemon games have expected.
頭身が変わっただけではなくて、今ちょっと移動のなんていうんですか、その見た目っていうか、ちょっと動き方も変わりましたね。
今回フリーに自由に動けるような仕組みにしてますね。
So yeah, you can move around free, full analog movement this time in the game.
Oh, and we need to tell players what's going on here when they're seeing the shadow come in.
どういう意味ですかね。
今あそこのキャラクターがモンスターボールを投げてるんですけど、あれはポケモントレーナーですね。でポケモントレーナーの視線に引っかからないように、上下でその緊張感を表しています。
So you see that lady over there, or the girl throwing a Pokeball up and down, and so she's a Pokemon trainer, and what she's obviously going to try and battle you, but what that kind of shadow that appears on the screen indicates is that that she's going to challenge you to a battle. So it kind of increases this sense of tension of you're about to go into a battle, and indicates that to the player.
So I can either avoid her or actually battle her.
じゃあこうバトルするか避けるかっていうのは
I think we're going to battle her.
Yeah, like, it feels like that moment where people are like glaring at each other. Ready to fight. But it is really nice if you're in a position where maybe you're trying to get somewhere really quickly, or your Pokemon aren't in great shape right now, you don't want to fight. It's nice to have that second where you can avoid it before you just kind of stumble yourself into a battle.
そうですね、ポケモンの具合があんま良くない時とか、先に急いでる時はもう避けられるっていう。
あ、そうですね。
Yeah, that's right.
I think so we can see here, we're seeing the other trainer as well. And it's really nice actually just to get such a good look at the Pokemon proportions alongside their trainers.
今回トレーナー、相手のトレーナーもバトルに出てるんですけれども、やっぱこうサイズ感、ポケモンのサイズ感っていうのが結構伝わりますね。
そうですね。結構そういうところがやっぱりこうトレーナーがいることによって表現できているっていうのが今回の新しいところですね。
Yeah, that's definitely one of the new things. I think by having the trainers in battle, like you mentioned, it really gives you that sense of scale.
And I think from the experience I've had at the office playing this game, it's really going to surprise people when they take a look at just how big and small certain Pokemon are when they're actually standing right next to them.
まあ結構多分今まで実感湧かなかった部分も多かったと思うんですけど、まあ実際遊んでみてやっぱこうこのポケモンこの大きさあったんだみたいなって思うところも多分多いんじゃないかなって。
あと、トレーナーごとにですね、いろいろこうモーションを工夫してまして、例えばボールの投げ方だったりとか、まあ、ポケモンに指示を出す仕草とか、まあ、そういったものが細やかに設定されています。
やられちゃったポーズとか、
やられちゃった。
And with the trainers being represented in full 3D this time, they all have unique motions and reactions. For example, how they throw their Pokeball or their reaction when they lose, for example.
アイテム拾いましたね。
So you just got an item there.
I think there might be some more folks we can battle up here.
もっとちょっとバトルが、トレーナーバトルが待ってるんじゃないかな、この先に。
As we're walking around, I'm hoping folks who are watching are listening with the volume up so they can hear the music in this area. I found it's really great how it feels. It really fits in with the tropical environment.
視聴者の皆さんも多分、聞こえてると思うんですけど、結構音楽が素晴らしいですね。南の国にちょっと合った感じの。
I love how enthusiastic he looks.
All right, Oliver.
すごいやる気ですね、この子。
ヤングースですね。
That's another young goose, looks like.
And we can see as Terry's battling here, with how the battle interface is set up, it's really easy to just get super involved in the battle to whatever extent you want to be. You've got all this information at your fingertips. It's not that you have to look at it all, but it's so nice that if there's anything that you need to check on, you can do it so quickly, and you still feel really immersed in the battle.
これやっぱそうですね、バトルのインターフェースでこういろんな情報を今、今回覚えなくてもいいっていうふうにしてるんですけども、まあ見たいときはタッチ一つでこうやっぱこう情報をすぐに出せるのがやっぱこう便利ですね。
ああ、そうですね。やっぱりこうバトルをしていて、まあこいつどんな状態だったっけとか、まあそういったことがすぐこう情報に出せるということは初心者でもまあこの奥深いバトルにまあとっつきやすくなるかなと入れました。
So yeah, of course, it really there's a lot of depth to the battles, but you don't have, for example, beginners, for example, maybe they don't want to, or they won't remember a lot of these different status changes and whatnot. But you can really quickly check on the state and see how things have changed.
I'll say I love Young Goose's painting animation. It's just so cute.
気絶の演出が今日可愛いですね。
何が出てくるんですかね。
I also soft spot for Pokemon with the teeth. There we go.
ツツケラですね。キツツキポケモンなんですけども、まあ、1秒にこう16連打して木を叩くと言われているポケモンですね。
So this is a pick-a-peck. It's called the wood poker, or excuse me, the woodpecker Pokemon. I can't even speak, but so the setting of this Pokemon is that it can actually peck 16 times in 1 second. So it's got very fast beak.
16回というのは特徴だよね。
16回というのは大丈夫。
We're very particular about the number 16.
It's interesting, yeah, watching its animation as it's got very bird-like movements as it's kind of twitching its head side to side, and I think that the level of detail that you guys have put into all the Pokemon animations in this game is really fantastic.
ポケモンそれぞれの動きとかすごい細やかに設定してるという話だったんですけど、結構わかりますね。これもう鳥みたいな感じでしょ。
そうですね。
首を横に振ったりとか。
Oh no no Terry!
Oh no!
まさかの。
Hopefully one of your new friends is ready to help us out. There's a good chance to mention, actually, we did find a Pokeball earlier as we were walking around, and you can find some good items to help you out along the way that can help you heal up your Pokemon. And
まあこの後そうですね
High risk.
ちゃんと傷薬とか持ってるので、まあバトルが終わったらちょっと回復できるんじゃないかなと。
あー捕まってよかった。
ドキドキしますねこれ。
We almost got wiped out there.
Let's get that's definitely a good end of that.
High risk to catch them off.
まあ
Oh, that's nice. Your ladybug got a level out of that, though.
まあこれでレベルアップですね。レディバーが。
Almost another one.
ゲームの醍醐味ですね。
Yes, this is definitely one of the. I think one of the things that really makes Pokemon a fun game. This kind of like the sense of tension here.
So, do we have anything we can give Papayo to
I think it's time to go to
fix
the
him
festival.
up? Oh,
もうそろそろ
you're ready.
祭りに向かいましょうか。
Oh no. We'll just run from this one.
All right.
ちょっとこれは一回逃げよう。あ、ヤングース。
あーヤングース出ましたね。
Terry, you gonna heal up after this? Or?
Yeah. we'll get healed up.
We'll get healed up.
I think before we get to the
patched
festival, because that's not to give too much away, but there's more fighting in your future.
More fight. この先もバトルが待ってるので、
そうですね。
回復した方がいいんじゃないかっていう。
So actually, as we come into this area here, we're going to be meeting several different characters that our viewers maybe aren't familiar with. Would you mind just giving us a quick introduction to them
これ
as
ちょ
they
っと
appear?
様々な新しいキャラクターが出てくると思うんですけども、それぞれちょっと紹介してもらってもいいですか？
はい
簡単に。
そうですね。今リリータウンに到着したんですけども、このキャラクターが原というキャラクターですね。最初にポケモンをくれるというキャラクターで PV にも登場してます。
So this is Hala. I think it's been revealed already in a video that we've released, but it's a really strong trainer on this island, and he's actually the guy who gives you your first partner Pokemon in your adventure.
すごい強いトレーナーですね。
A very strong trainer on this island.
この子はハウっていうキャラクターですね。ニャビーを今連れているんですけど、この後、お祭りで一緒に戦います。
So this is how, and you're about to battle him actually as part of this festival.
あと、ククイですね。ポケモン博士です。今回は、技の研究をしているという博士ですね。
And that's Professor Kukui right there in the white lab coat. He's a professor who specializes in researching Pokemon moves, so like their attacks and such.
Yeah, I think based on the fan response I've seen, he is quickly becoming the most dreamy professor, I think, for the fans.
今までの博士の中でちょっとイケメンっていう評判が出てるんですけど。
あとリリエですね。ポケモンのトレーナーではないんですけども、今後も一緒に冒険するキャラクターです。
And that's Lily behind you there. She's the assistant of Professor Kukui, and she's not a Pokemon trainer, but she'll join you on your adventure throughout the story.
And sharp-eyed viewers may have noticed
回
her
復した。
bag is kind of interesting.
ちょっと彼女が持っているバッグちょっと気になりますね。カバンの方は。
なんかありましたか今？
Was there something there?
い
Yeah.
やもうわからない。
ちょっとねさっき動いてたけどね。
いや
まだ言え
まだ
ない。
言
Gotta keep it a secret right now, unfortunately.
動いてたの見ちゃった。
You saw a move. Maybe that's a hint.
Well, I think it's time we go into the festival battle.
ではそろそろ祭りのバトルになりますか。
So I think it's going to be really interesting for fans of the series to see this battle and this space. The way that Pokemon and Pokemon battles are integrated into the culture in these islands is really interesting. And you get these amazing battle spaces where other folks are gathering around and watching you guys fight.
このやっぱこう人間の社会にもやっぱポケモンとポケモンバトルそのものがこう、なんていうんですか社会の一部になっててすごい大切なものっていうのがすごく伝わりますね。やっぱこういう、しっかりしたこうバトルアリーナみたいな感じもできてて。
そうですね。今回このお祭りなんですけども、2人の旅立ちを祝うというかそういう儀式になっています。戦った後にこの2人は島を巡る冒険が始まるというストーリーになっています。
So in this particular festival, actually, this is kind of a celebration or a way to kind of kick off both you and Hao's adventures to kind of travel across the island. So it's kind of a ritual in this society.
And folks may have noticed there was another thing we can't really talk about too much, but just to mention Tapu Koko.
そうですね。
Worth paying attention to that name.
とかいろんな気になる単語
Might
です
be
ね。
important.
今後に期待してください。
Please report more information. I can't really talk too much about it.
And so how brought out a Pichu?
あ
Who looks
ピチューが出てきました
adorable.
ね。可愛いですね。
今度は負けないように頑張ってください。
Don't lose this time, Derek.
Leave it to me.
任せてください。
And here we can see
See what he's done for
checking different effects.
そうですね。パラメータがどう変わったかっていうのを今ちょっと確認してるんですね。
敵の相手方も自分側も両方見えるんでとても便利ですね。
Yeah, you can see both your status changes as well as the opponent's status changes to really see what's going on in the battle.
So looking at this tropical environment, I'm really hoping that you guys were able to pull off some business trips to some nice tropical locations maybe. I mean, it's for research, it's work. Just have to go.
今回南の国という設定なんですけど、やっぱこう研究目的でこういろんな素敵な場所に行けたんじゃないでしょうか。
そうですね。開発のスタッフでこう実際にハワイに行ってですね、いろいろなモチーフを見たり、デザインにも生かされたりしています。
So yeah, we actually took as the staff, the development staff at Game Freak, we took trips to Hawaii to really do some research, and we've definitely utilized that to kind of reflect it in the game. And
I should have convinced my boss that I need to do that to prep for this. To really get this segment, I really need to go to Hawaii.
今回のこのセグメントのためにやっぱこうハワイに行ってくればよかったですね。ということで。
Come on, Terry, show us what you got.
That's one down.
Nice.
一匹倒しましたね。
So we saw with the icons as the battle started. I think Hal has one more Pokemon to go.
ハオはあと手持ちがあと一匹ですね。はい。
Ooh, and a new skill, nice.
新しい技を覚えてますね。
There we see one of the other new starters.
これも
ヤビーなんですけども、一回実はもう見ているという設定になってまして、戦うとですね、一回見たことあるポケモンはどれが効果が抜群かっていうのが分かるようなインターフェースになっています。
So at this point in the story, you see Hal has Litten, which is another one of the first Pokemon you can choose in your adventure. But you've actually encountered, you've battled against him and his Litten once in the story. And so once in Pokemon Sun and Moon, once you've battled a Pokemon once, the next time you battle it, you'll get information on your move list about which moves are effective and which ones aren't.
あれですね。スーパーエフェクティブっていうのは効果抜群っていう。
そうですね。So just explaining that, water gun is super effective. Yeah, what it means.
I think I'll stick with that one.
Yeah.
初心者でも分かりやすい風にしています。
So it's just coming back to make it all very easy to understand for even beginners of the game.
That really is so nice to have that information.
情報があるとやっぱ助かりますね。
I think especially when you're trying to catch more Pokemon, and you're like, okay, I actually maybe don't want to be super effective right now. I need to kind of whittle this Pokemon down. So being able to remember, maybe you want to use your weaker attacks sometimes just to kind of get them just to that point.
捕まえたい時とかもやっぱこう効果抜群じゃない方とかをあえて選びたいことがあるので結構役に立ちますね、この情報。
Nice, good job, man.
勝ちました。
I love what a good sport Hal is about losing too. He's just kind of rolling with it. It's all good. So I don't think we can go too much further in the gameplay because we're going to start giving away story elements that we don't want to show folks yet. But you did bring another video for us to take a look at that has a new gameplay mode that I don't think folks have seen before.
この先やっぱ実機プレイを進めるとストーリーのネタバレ的なところも落ちてしまうことになるので、ここまでにして、ただもう一つちょっと映像を持ってきていただいて、持ってきているという理解なんですけども、初めて今回初登場の新しい新モードという理解です。
ポケモンはやっぱりコミュニケーションツールとして今まで対戦とか交換とかっていうのをやってきたんですけども、今回はさらに新しい形でのバトルっていうものが登場します。バトルロイヤルっていうものですね。
So with the Pokemon series, obviously, using it as a kind of a communication tool, facilitating that communication between players has always been one of the things we've really focused on with the game. So trading and battling between players, of course. This time that's no different. We've got an all-new multiplayer battle mode, which we're calling the Battle Royale.
All right, well, let's see if our crew can load that up for us and we can check out this gameplay.
そうですね。
So as we get started here, can you tell us a little bit about what the rules are for Battle Royale and how the matches are decided?
そうですね。このバトルロイヤルなんですけども、4人のプレイヤーがポケモンを3匹ずつバトルに出して戦うというルールです。今日はちょっと時間の関係で1匹にしています。
So in this mode, it's actually 4 players. Each player chooses up to 3 Pokemon and battles with one at a time. In this video here, we're just doing one Pokemon for the sake of time.
このバトルロイヤルの勝敗についてなんですけども、誰かの手持ちのポケモンが全て倒されたら試合終了となります。
So how this actually works with how it determines the winner. So this is a free-for-all battle, but whenever one of the trainers, when the first trainer to lose all of his or her Pokemon, that signals the end of the battle.
倒したポケモンの数と、残ったポケモンの数の合計が一番多いプレイヤーが勝者となります。
And then once the battle is over, once the first person loses all of their Pokemon, it then to determine the winner, the game tallies up each player's how many Pokemon they've defeated and also how many Pokemon they have remaining on their team. And whoever has that highest number is the winner of the Battle Royale.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting what this is going to do for strategy as folks are playing, because generally speaking, when you're thinking about how you're going to switch up your Pokemon to fight another trainer, it's only a one-on-one situation, so you can look at their Pokemon and say, okay, I've got this Pokemon that's going to be strong against this one, but you're worried about two other opponents here, so you really have to think about who's going to fare best against a group.
Three other opponents, actually.
Yeah,
it's... そうですね、やっぱこう今までだったらこうチーム戦とかあと1対1のポケモンバトルが、多分主流だったと思うんですけども、今回はやっぱこう相手、3人気にしなきゃいけないっていうのは、特徴ですよね。
そうですね、今回特徴としてこう4匹いるポケモンの中で誰を倒すかっていうのを考えないといけません。で例えば1匹すごい強いポケモンがいても3人で集中攻撃すれば倒せるといった戦略性もあります。
So yeah, it's a free-for-all, and of course, you could have 3 people gang up on one really strong person, or you really have to kind of determine your strategy about how you're gonna, which order you're gonna defeat Pokemon, who you're gonna focus on. Right. So totally new gameplay dynamic.
Yeah, it is interesting how much more intense it feels. Where I'm used to just looking at the trainer in front of me and fighting them, and suddenly it's like, oh, there's 2 more trainers. I have to pay attention to everybody. And folks watching there, you may have caught that the trainers there were wearing different outfits from what we saw with the regular player characters that we've shown off so far. We can't really talk about that yet, but worth noticing.
ちょっとそれぞれのプレイヤーの見た目とかあと服装が違うっていうのはちょっと気になりましたね。
また気づいちゃいましたね。
You got a good eye there.
これあれですね。今回着せ替えが入ってます。
So yeah, you can actually customize your outfits in this game as well.
So we're just about out of time, but before we wrap up, I was curious now that you've had a chance to see some fan reaction for these games. How's it been seeing how Pokemon fans have reacted for Pokemon Sun and Pokemon Moon?
ちょっと時間が来てしまいましたけれども、今回のポケモンサンムーン発表されてから、多分ファンからの反響というのはあるんですけれども、その手応えについてお話してもらえますか。
そうですね。今回7言語から9言語に中文を増やしまして、特にその中文使われている人たちからもたくさん反響をいただいてまして、自分のツイッターとかいただいてるんですけども、やっぱりポケモン20周年ということもあって、ここからさらに広がりを見せるために、非常にみんなが喜んでくれて、とても嬉しいなと思ってます。
So yes, the reaction from everyone has been really great. I get tons of messages and tweets and everything. This being the 20th anniversary of Pokemon, one of the goals we really want to kind of for the future of Pokemon, really kind of expand it to even a wider audience. And as I think we've announced previously, in addition to the 7 languages we had in X and Y and Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, we also added Chinese, simplified Chinese and traditional Chinese. And I think a lot of especially from those regions, like fans have really been kind of excited about it and sending me lots of great messages.
And is there anything final that you'd like to wrap up and say to fans who are watching the stream right now?
ちょっと最後にファンに向けてのメッセージということで何かありますか？
そうですね。もう今までにないチャレンジをこのソフトはサンとムーンはしているので、皆さんすごい楽しみに待っていてください。
So yeah, I think Sun and Moon, we're really doing a lot of new challenges for us here as Game Freak. So I hope everyone really just look forward to the games.
Well, thank you.
自分も完全新作としてのディレクター初めてだったんで、たくさんの苦労があったんですけども、その甲斐があってすごいいいゲームができたので期待しててください。
So there was a lot of challenges for me, especially as it's the first time directing an entirely new generation of Pokemon at Game Freak. But I think we've really brought the game together. It's really turned into something fantastic, and I hope fans really look forward to it.
I know I'm definitely looking forward to it. And thank you so much for joining us and giving us some insight into the development work here. Folks watching again, that was Pokemon Sun and Pokemon Moon, which are coming out for the Nintendo 3DS family of systems this November, so you don't have to wait too much longer. And please don't go anywhere. In a few moments, we're actually going to be coming back. Aonuma-san is going to be stopping by to show us some gameplay for a game you might be thinking about, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So please don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Thank you.
10.
All right, welcome back to IGN Live, and we're sorry because we just kind of had to throw this together because we have some dead time between now and when Nintendo's going to start talking about Zelda. But oddly enough, they started with a new trailer and then went over to Pokemon, which was exciting. But for some of us, a temptation that we're still getting over. Like we're still struggling with it.
Was it exciting?
The Zelda trailer was very, very
Zelda
exciting
trailer was.
on so many notes, but I think it's really difficult, and I'm sorry, I'll lead off with this. It's really difficult to start something like that with Zelda and then expect some folks to pay attention to Pokemon when you got them that excited for something so new.
Well, it's not even having to switch gears into Pokemon. It's that the Pokemon thing was far too long. There was a lot of delay. And they should have led off, I think, with the four-player battle royale.
As well as a very special guest, Mr. Ayanuma, has joined us here. We're going to talk a little bit about a little game here that I think a lot of people are excited about, The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild. Before we jump right into things, though, Mr. Ayanuma, I think, is there a message you have to the fans?
アヌマさんからファンへのメッセージを。
ゼルダのね、当たり前を見直すって言って作ってきたこの、ブレスオブザワイルド。いっぱい話したいことあるんですけど、もうトレーラーも見ていただいたし、ファンの皆さんは早くゲーム見たいと思ってると思うんですね。なのでもうゲーム始めたいと思うんですけど。
So I've created this game thinking about breaking the conventions of Zelda, and I know that a lot of fans have seen the trailer, and they probably want us to jump right in. So why don't we get started?
Let's do it. We're going to be showing a lot of The Legend of Zelda today, starting right here. We're going to show you what you can do, and we're going to introduce you to this amazing world, but we're going to try not to spoil anything. So feel free to tune in for as long as you like.
ネタバレなしで。
Open your eyes. Open your eyes. Wake up, Link.
This is a very mysterious place, Aonuma-san.
ちょっと神秘的な場所ですけれども。
そうですね。ゼルダの当たり前を見直して言いながら、いつもと同じような目覚めるシーンから始まってますけどね。
I've talked about breaking the conventions of Zelda, but Link does start by waking up.
Keep that rooted in the tradition.
伝統を守るという感じでいいんじゃないでしょうか。
ただまあ本当にミステリアスなね場所で。 不思議な感じですよね。
This really is a mysterious place, and it's kind of very.
That is a Sheikah slate. Take it. It will help guide you after your long slumber.
So here we see the introduction of a very mysterious item.
神秘的なアイテムが出てきましたが。
ね、ゼルダって今まで剣と魔法のね、その世界だったんですけど、今回は今度は何か新しいテクノロジーのような感じですね。
So in the past series, we've used swords and magic, but this time around, we introduced technology.
I know a lot of people are going to be so excited to see how that plays out in this game because that's such a great new wrinkle to add to the Zelda franchise.
シーガーストーンがどんな感じでゲームで使われるのかっていうのをファンの皆さんが期待していると思います。
でもやっぱり宝箱を開けるんです。
And he's going to start by opening the treasure box.
宝箱から出てきたのが服なんですね。
These are clothing items that he can wear.
リンク今まで裸同然でしたから。
Link was pretty much naked.
これ裸でもできるけどね。
So Bill, you can actually play this nude too if you want.
Not quite my style.
僕のスタイルではないのに遠慮しておきます。
はい、OK です。
That would also make you very vulnerable to enemies, just so you know.
で、敵にもちょっとそれで防備力が下がってしまう。
That will show you the way.
And so we see here one of the functionalities of the Sheikah Slate is activating
これがシーカストーンの
this pedestal
機能の一つです。
and opening this door here.
さあいよいよです。
So it starts.
Link, you are the light. Our light. That must shine upon Hyrule once again. Now go.
画面にジャンプっていうふうに書かれてます。今回ね、初めてボタンでジャンプするようになりました。
So as you can see on the screen, it says jump. Now Link can jump for the first time.
そのジャンプはああやって壁を登るためなんですね。
And the jump is for him to climb up the wall.
Now we see the subtitle on screen. Perhaps this would be a good time for Aonuma-san to talk about that a little bit.
サブタイトルが画面に出てきましたけども、これについてちょっとご説明いただけますか。
ゼルダってね、今までアイテム名とかキャラクター名がサブタイトルにつくことが多かったんですけど、今回はね、この世界そのものの名前です。
So in the previous titles, we used character names and item names as subtitles, but this time around, we wanted to showcase the world of Zelda.
And I think, especially from that sweeping panoramic shot right there, we see how much of a character the world is, how much of a presence the world is in this. And I know, hearing some of the iterations of possibilities for the subtitle, and you know, I remember the moment when I first heard Breath of the Wild, and it was just like, oh, that's it, that's the right one. It felt so right with in tune with the nature and the sort of expansiveness of this world.
このゲームの背景を見たり、その自然の要素っていうのを見ていると、初めてそのサブタイトルを伺った時に、もうこれだ、これがもうぴったり合うっていうふうに感じました。はい、こうやってね、どんどんね、壁とか山とか登っていけるんですね。So Link can climb the mountain or the wall, just like you saw here. で横に緑色のゲージがありますけど、頑張りゲージって言って、あれが続く限り登っていけるわけです。So that is the green. You see the green gauge on the left. That's the stamina gauge, and you can kind of see how much you can climb by that gauge. で、世界に転がっていろんなものをね、どんどん手に入れることができるわけ。And then there's a lot of items scattered all around the world, and you can take those. You can pick those up. 任天堂といえば。And then, as Nintendo, we of course have to have this item right here, mushrooms.
We love our mushrooms.
このキノコは大きくなったりしませんけど。
This mushroom is not going to make Link any bigger.
Good to know.
はい。こうやって大きな岩とかもね、落ちたりいろいろしてこうやってその世界にあるいろんなものにこうリンクがこういろいろアクションできるんですね。
So as you can see, Link can push off big rocks down the hill. He can use all these little items and elements and incorporate it into gameplay.
See already, Bill doing some gathering, a lot of climbing here. And already there's this sense of you're just thrown into this world of exploration right off the bat.
Head for the point marked on the map in your Sheikah Slate.
Somebody's calling you, Bill.
So here we get our first look at the map. This circular area here being the extent of the E3 demo that we're showing. This is a high plateau in the center of Hyrule. We'll give you just a sneak peek of how big that is, but I think you'll get to see a better look at the scale of the world later on today.
ハイラルの真ん中に位置しているE3 バージョンで見れるマップは後でまた別の機会にお見せしましょう。
Oh, I got a baked apple.
焼きリンゴですね。
あ、怒られちゃいました。
No, you took a baked apple.
He scolded you.
Oh. Now, who is this gentleman, Mr. Aonuma? Would you like to share with people?
この男性は誰なんでしょうか。ご説明いただけますか。
不思議ですね。
He's kind of myserious looking.
ね、一番最初のゼルダで出会ったのもこういう老人でしたよね。
And in the first of the series, I think you met a guy like this.
He says this is the Great Plateau, and he describes it as the birthplace of the Kingdom of Hyrule.
ハイラル王国の誕生の地、始まりの大地ということです。
もうちょっとなんか遺跡のような感じになってしまって神殿ですね。
So you can see the temple that's very worn down.
Yes, he says the kingdom is in a state of decay.
なんか王国がちょっと崩壊しているっていう。
So I picked up a tree branch earlier. Currently, it's all I have for a weapon, but you can see very quickly the things that I can do with a tree branch.
さっき枝をピックアップしたんですけども、これが唯一の今持っている武器なんだけども、結構いろんなことができる。
そうですね。
And I can.
いろんなことできますけど、そんなにいろいろ火つけたら大変なことになりますよ。
You can do a lot of things, but you can't just set everything on fire.
Right. I think we've just seen a window into Bill's play style.
ビルのプレイスタイルが今ちょっと垣間見れましたね。
I picked up an axe, and so I can also swap my weapons out. So I'll switch over to the axe. The axe is great because I can chop down trees if I want to get to some apples.
Use all the resources.
Right. I can even chop the logs that I've cut to get firewood, which I can later use to set a campfire.
丁寧に全部こう紐で巻いてあるってすごいですね。
So it's very nice, neatly bundled up already for you.
It's amazing.
Convenient. Yeah, I think honestly, first time I got my hands on the realm, I spent the first 20 minutes like chopping down trees and climbing trees. That's all I did.
初めこのゲームを初めてプレイした時に、とりあえずもうなんか木を切り倒したり、木に登ったりすることに集中してました。
はい。
I've always been a big fan of the Koroks.
この子たちはね、この世界の至る所にこう隠れてるんです。
So these guys are actually hiding everywhere in the world here.
Oh, what do we have there?
Aonuma-san,
it looks like I've already come across the Master Sword.
見つかったか。
Maybe you found it.
見つかってしまったか。
Did you get it already? Did you find it?
まずい。
Oh.
残念でした。
No.
こんなところにね、そんな重要なものが置いてあるわけないですよ。
There's no way I'm going to play something that important here.
That would be the ultimate in breaking with the Zelda conventions.
それはなんかゼルダの当たり前を見直すっていうのの一番。
Now I do need a shield, so I think I'm gonna run up this way. As you can see, the world is open to me. I can go any direction that I want, but I'm gonna run up here through the grass. I have a sword, so perhaps I should cut some grass. But nothing's coming out.
でも何も出てきません。
これだ、もうリンクはダメージ受けたらどうやって回復するんだって話ですよね。
So I guess you want to know how Link can get life after getting a damage. So let's try fighting some of these enemies.
Bill has stumbled onto a goblin camp here.
Oh.
Gonna dispatch them with some extreme prejudice here, I think. There we go. It's not much of a shield, but I've got a pot lid.
とりあえずシールドをゲットしました。
Uh-oh. Oh, he's taunting me. Oh no, I'm gonna need some health here in a bit. No. And his sword broke, so... Uh-oh.
Oh, your shield broke.
Oh, I stole his spear.
今回ね、リンクが持ってる武器はね、使ってるうちに壊れちゃうんですよ。
So for this title, the weapons that Link have actually will break as he uses them.
で今ビルも敵からこうやって武器を奪いましたけど、こうやってねどんどん強い敵倒して強い武器を手に入れる、そういうサイクルでこのゲームは進みますね。
So the cycle of this game is that you go into a battle with enemies and then you take their weapons, and then so you can use them as your own.
So perhaps we'll head down and check out some of these ruins.
ビルハートなくなっちゃったじゃない。
Oh,
回復
yes.
しなきゃ。
Your heart's getting a little lower, Bill.
ハートをどうやったら回復できるかというと、
So let's
そ
see
の
how you
キノコを取ってましたけど、その下にハートのマーク見えますよね。
So you can see that little heart icon on the
これはハー
mushroom.
トが半分回復することを指してます。
And then it shows that you can get half of the heart back if you
で
eat it.
今回はね草を切ってハートで回復するんではなくて、リンクは物を食べて回復します。
So this time around, you're not going to find any hearts in the grass, but you're going to be eating these food items, and you can get your energy, stamina back up.
Using that way to replenish your health. I love that notion of really having to take advantage of the resources in the world with grabbing the weapons we were talking about. You know, you're getting those from enemies, you're finding them in certain places, and then using the food as this resource to keep your health up is also really interesting. It's a lot of fun.
周りにある武器だ敵の武器だったり食べ物だったり、そうやってリソースを駆使して進めていくっていうゲームのスタイルがすごく楽しいです。
そうですね。だからねちょっとねサバイバルな感じですよね。現地でとにかくいろんなものを調達しなきゃいけないっていう。
So it's almost like a survival game where you have to collect all these items so you can move on with the game.
Executing the flurry rush.
あれは今敵の攻撃に対してビルがうまくこうジャンプで避けたんですよね。そうするとスローモーションになって敵にヒットを与えやすくなるんですね。
So when you get a perfect timing, the enemy slows down and then it's easier for you to attack the enemies.
Looks like I got a new pair of trousers, which I've been needing to pick up. So.
新しいパンツをゲットしたので、それに着替えます。
Okay. You can see that there's quite a lot to look around at and discover in the world. I'm gonna run past those barrels there.
周りにいろいろあるので、いろいろと探求心というか辺りを見回すのがすごく楽しいです。
Aonuma-san, we don't have a good idea of what's going on in Hyrule here, but everything seems to be in ruin.
ちょっとハイラルが荒廃化というか、なんか遺跡化してしまっているので。
そうですね。これも昔のトレーラーでもお見せしました。今回のトレーラーにいたガーディアンですね。
So you saw these guys in the trailer, they're guardians.
っていう敵なんですけど、今動かなくなっちゃってますね、もう。
And they're enemies, but as you can see, these guys are not moving anymore.
だからなんかその間にこう時間の経過ってのがあるんですよね。
So there must be some sort of a time lapse.
So I know a lot of people are going to be really excited about how you're dropped into this world, and there's minimal backstory. There's not a lot up front in this game other than here you are. What are you going to do? What do you want to do? Where do you want to go? and then yet there's so many hints in this environment about that hint of something greater has happened. And I think people will be really interested to see the story sort of unfold as they play the game.
ゲームが始まってから、どのような舞台設定なのかっていうのはユーザーさんの方でまだ詳しく分かりませんけども、こうやってゲームを進めていくうちにいろいろとヒントが見つかって、こんなんなんじゃないか、あんなんなんじゃないかっていうふうに考え始めることでユーザーさんも楽しまれるんじゃないでしょうか。
そうですね、やっぱりそういうことが自然と分かってくるっていうのが面白いじゃないですか。ゲームって端的にいろいろ伝えたくなっちゃうんですけど、今回はねそういうところがもうじわじわと分かってくる形になってるので、ぜひ楽しみにしてほしいと思いますね。
So I think with this title you'll be able to learn these backstories, like you said, Ed, that you'll be able to learn them little by little on your own pace. It's not that the game is telling you, but you can kind of explore and find out on your own.
This might also be a good time to talk a little bit about the art style and just the nature of the game itself. If you look at Link and the world, it's clearly deeply inspired by Japanese animation.
で、今このリンクのアートスタイルなんかを見ると、日本のアニメに随分と影響を受けているんじゃないかっていうふうなことが感じられますけど、どうでしょうか。
そうですね。ゼルダでいうとね、風のタクトの時にトゥーンっていう表現を使って。そのアニメーションの表現を取り入れてみたんですけれども、それはねそういう世界が広くその自然の中にものがあるんですけど、それをはっきり分からせるためには描き込むよりももっと簡素なマイナスしていくね、削っていってはっきりそれを分からせる、こういうアニメーションの技法の方がゲームには向いてると思うんですね。
So we've used this toon style before in the previous title, but in order for the players to see an item, to find an item, it's actually easier to use the animation style where you create something and then you shave off the elements, so the users will be able to identify the items easier rather than adding on elements to the background.
なのでそのアニメーションっていうその技法を使って表現するっていうことがテーマではなくて、それをねゲームの規模に合わせてそれを選んだっていうことなんですね。
So the theme here is not that we wanted to create an animation style game, but we wanted to use this art style and then match it to the functions of this game.
And you see here the time limit on the demo that people will have access to on the show floor.
Yeah, we were supposed to disable that. That was my mistake.
That's all right. That's all right.
These things happen. What we can do is we'll skip through a few things.
It's an organic playthrough. It's true to the nature of the game itself.
で、ゲームの本当の自然な形に今沿っているので、こんなこともあるんじゃないか。
そうですね。今日体験してもらえるものを生で皆さんにも感じてもらったってことですよね。
So yeah, this is something that the users will experience tonight on the show floor. So.
And I think people saw, that actually gives people at home a sense of how much time people are going to have here. And as Reggie said, nobody's going to be able to explore even just this small area that we're showing here at E3. And that speaks to just how large this experience is going to be. And I think that people are going to be really excited to just get that little taste of it.
さっきレジも言ってましたけれども、本当に今回ショーフロアでデモをしても本当に一部の部分しかマップの一部しかゲーム内の一部しかプレイできないので、今のこの切れてしまいましたけれども、それでどれぐらいの本当に短い時間にどれぐらいちょっとしか見れないかっていうのが、ビューアーの皆さんにも分かった、視聴者の皆さんにも分かったんじゃないか。
そうですね。
But in going back and talking about the art style, the colors are very reminiscent of a type of paint called gouache. And gouache was actually it's a material that is used frequently in animation. But it's also a material that's used in a style of painting that is called en plein air, or in English, open air painting, where you go out into the environment and you sit down in front of the object that you intend to paint, and you paint it in that real world setting. And then, as we started looking at, the art style and its similarities to gouache and that connection, we also started to feel that the music in the game also has a very open-air feeling to it. Isn't that correct, Aonuma-san?
このアートスタイルも随分そうやってグワッシュとか使っているような感じのスタイルですけれども、音楽自体もとてもなんかオープンエアっていうテーマにぴったりな気がするんですけども、そこら辺のご説明っていうのをお願いできますか。
ね、どこに行って何をするのも自由な今回のゲームなのでね、あるルートに沿って遊んでってもらって、その間にこう音楽をこう盛り立てていくみたいなことが今回使えないんですね。
So because the players will be able to explore and do anything that they want to, we couldn't use the conventional types of music where we know that where the users would go, and we can kind of get the music more dynamic as the users explore certain areas of the map. So this time around, we kind of took a different approach.
なので今回は、ゲームの BGM をですね、環境音、今大自然の中のこの音がありますけど、それに融合させるような BGM の使い方をしてるんです。
So as you can hear, there's a lot of environmental sounds that you hear throughout the game, and then we try to blend that music, that sound into the game as much as we can.
先ほどから見ていただいてるたまにこう流れてくるピアノのね、あると思うんですけど。
And then you can hear a little piano, sounds of piano throughout the game, I think.
ピアノのね音っていうのはこの自然の音にすごくマッチするんですね。
And then the sounds of piano actually matches this nature element very well.
なおかつ人の内面にこう働きかけるような響きを。
And then the sounds of piano actually kind of strikes a chord in people's emotions too. So I think it works really well.
なのでリンクが何かの目的のもとで何かをしようとしている時にたまたま偶然にまたそのピアノの曲に出会うとですね、ぐっと気持ちが盛り上がってくるんですね。
So when you're playing the game and when Link goes through something, and then if that piano sound happens to come on, it kind of it makes you feel so emotional just hearing that perfect match of the movement and the music.
だって本当の偶然の出会いなんですよ。だから100人いたら100人の人が違う体験をするっていう、それを感じてほしくてそういう。
So the music is our intention was to, because this game it has 100 ways of playing it if there is 100 players playing it. So we kind of wanted to make that that very unique experience for every player.
I know longtime fans of the series, that's going to be one of the first things they notice. You know, there's not the constant theme music always present everywhere you go. And this new take on the sort of on the aural experience is really refreshing. It's true to the game, and it does resonate. It feels really good to play.
ゼルダファンにとっては常にこうテーマ音楽が流れているようなバックグラウンド流れているような感じではないので、やっぱり今回のBGM に関してはすごくみんな気づくと思うんですけれども、違いに。でもやっぱり青沼さんがおっしゃったように本当に心にグッとくるような音楽なので、すごくこのプレイスタイルに合っていると思います。
よかったです。
Yeah, I'm really happy to hear that, Ed.
Bill continuing
There we
his
go.
campaign of brutality.
裸ですね。
Yes, I forgot to.
Sorry, I forgot to put my pants on.
Just like any other day.
So we do have, one of the things that we're not showing in this morning segment that's going to be coming up in just a little bit is puzzle solving. You'll be seeing some of that today. You'll be seeing quite a bit of exploration and the ways to use the objects that you've discovered. But one of the things, there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of experiment with the environment and the world here in Breath of the Wild. So I'm just going to have a little bit of fun with a little project I want to try out here.
後々午後のセグメントでは謎解きだったりいろいろな他のマップの他のエリアの探求なんかもしますけど、ちょっと今回はビルがやりたかったビルのプロジェクトにちょっと今集中して
何をしてんのこれ。
Oh. Okay, well, I like that you call this setup a project, Bill. Let's see.
もう何がしたいか分かりません。
I don't know what you're trying to do here, Bill.
Let's see if it's close enough. Nope. Oh. Get another club? Let's see if we can make that happen. Oh, no, not quite.
なんとなく分かった。
Club will try one
Maybe I have an
more.
idea here.
no. Oh. Hey, you live. I did. I survived.
死なずに。
Well done. Now,
But look at your heart, Bill.
that was quite dangerous. Thank you for joining us for Bill's project. We have a little, we have a little bit of news. I think everybody has been excited for some special Zelda items coming to Miitomo.
なんかミートモに新しいゼルダのアイテムが登場するということで。
We've just been told that those items will be going live at 3 p.m. Pacific time, so be sure to check into Miitomo today to get your free Zelda-themed items there. We have a lot more Zelda coming up today. As we've talked about, we're really focusing on introducing you to the world, the things you can do in the world, how you're going to be surviving. It's really all about the actions and the activities. You won't be seeing so much in terms of characters and story. So if you're the type of person who doesn't want to be spoiled, feel free to tune in all day. Yeah.
で今日も午後からいろいろとキャラクターとストーリーというにフォーカスしたものではなくて、他の要素にフォーカスしたツリーハウスライブのセグメントがあるので皆さんご覧になってください。
まだまだたくさん伝えたいことがありますのでよろしくお願いします。
There's so much more I want to tell you about this game, so please look forward to it.
Yes, so stay tuned. We're going to take another look at our next segment. We're going to be focused on some exploration. So thank you, Noriko, Mr. Ainuma. Thank you, Bill. Thank you very much for your time. And don't go anywhere. We got more Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild coming up.
Welcome back, everybody. And here we are, our first time seeing Treehouse Live, well, basically at E3 to show us Zelda, to show us Pokemon. Let's start. First of all, I'm Jose Otero. That's Per Schneider. That's Callie Pleggy. That's Brian Altano.
What's up?
We're Nintendo Voice Chat, and we're here to entertain you, hopefully, with some talk about what we just saw. So let's start with reactions. Some rough starts, some awesome stuff, too.
Yeah.
Let's go around. Well, the trailer, man.
Oh, wow. Gosh.
Just starting off with the Zelda trailer, you start off so strongly.
Yeah. And voiceover in that trailer.
So you saw, you heard voiceover right off the bat. You get a throwback to classic Zelda adventures where you have, Zelda's voice saying, wake up, and open your eyes. And then just showing kind of the break with conventions, right?
Yeah.
Instantly being able to climb, being able to craft, being able to just do much more with enemies, weapons, and items and stuff. It got me really excited.
Yeah, like the cooking and the hunting. I mean, this is what I was talking about on the pre-show, is like expanding what the world of Zelda is.
Yeah.
And taking, I mean, the subtitle is Breath of the Wild. Like they're really leaning into that with, I love the movement, the vertical movement you have. It looks amazing in that trailer. It was just so phenomenal.
It really does feel like they're treating the environment as a character, as we've sort of been thinking about. I remember a while back with Wii Sports Resort, they were like, Woohoo Island is our new character. And you're like, how can an island be a character?
Yeah.
And you look at this in this game, and it's like, there's really something special about the way all of this comes together. I'm an adult man with a leather jacket on and stubble on my face, and I started tearing up watching the trailer this morning.
I know.
There's something so special about this franchise. The music, the voice acting, the scope of this game, how it all came together is just so magical.
Oh, and
There's nothing at E3 like it.
The smartest thing with that trailer is to show the nature and the vast sort of things that you'll explore, just little adventures. It almost felt like a day in the life. Like, look, we have cooking happening there.
Yeah.
We have him shooting down a beehive. Some of these activities are as a distraction to scare away that bokoblin.
Yep.
Some of this stuff is stuff we've seen in other Zelda games, and then things like that aren't at all. And so I think they did a great job of setting up that mystery. Here is this world. You have to wake up and play a part in it, and then cutting away quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought it's interesting. I mean, after seeing like Microsoft, Sony's conferences, this is something different, right? This is their live kind of demo stream where they showcase, 2 of their major titles and some more stuff.
Yeah.
And like they didn't start with bombastic flames and like the kind of epic Twilight Princess Zelda reveal with the Conan music. It was very low key. It was all about like, look at this landscape and look at all the stuff you can do.
And I think that's because there's this sort of like, as with all the beauty and wonder there is in this game, there's also this lonely sort of desolation to it. You have this character who wakes up basically naked, who has no weaponry. He has to start crafting and finding things and putting together things to survive. And he's by himself. He's alone. He's walking around in this world by himself. This is not a co-op team-based like squadrons coming in, people helping you out. This is the adventure of one person.
So I'm going to rein it in a little though to then transition to, because we're going to talk. We're still on reactions, right? We then transition to Pokemon, which wasn't quite as elegant and also showed just that Nintendo, despite good intentions, is not really great at the live stream game at making it a smooth experience.
Yeah, I mean, they opened with stuff we've already seen. They didn't open with, I mean, they should have opened with Battle Royale, that new 4-player battle mode, which is super interesting,
or
really
a trailer.
exciting.
Yeah, get the excitement.
Or a trailer, or they led with things we've seen already, which I thought was a misstep for them.
Yeah, just to throw in there, so we're referring to Shigeru Omori and Junichi Masuda, who then had this preamble about things we already knew in Pokemon. And so at E3 to do that, that's kind of assuming that the audience hasn't seen it when your average Pokemon fan has seen everything. They're dying for more.
And if you're doing it for people who don't know, you would show a trailer, something quick, not something drawn out. It felt a little bit like, no offense, but it felt like a timeshare upsell where it's like, you can win a cruise, but first you have to listen to these 30 minutes of us talking about things you already know you don't want, right?
It's also like a 3DS game, right? So when you blow that out on a big screen and you're watching it with those perceptions in mind, just the pacing of going from Zelda, it felt like watching that Godzilla movie from a few years ago, where every time Godzilla got going, they'd close the doors or cut some dialogue. I was like, show me Zelda.
See, that's interesting, because I didn't think the platform had anything to do with it, but more that you can't lead off a live show with a new Zelda trailer that is bucking that many conventions and then show me Pokemon, which for most of the presentation is not bucking that many. But they did get to an important part where it did get there. But you were going to say, sorry, Kelly.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was, to me, felt like baby's first Pokemon. Like they were explaining very basic things. And when they finally got to Battle Royale, that's when it got interesting, because they have this 4-player multiplayer free-for-all battle, and the winner is decided based on the number of Pokemon you eliminate and the number of Pokemon left in your party, which I think is a typical tiebreaker for Pokemon. But like, that's super interesting. They should have led with, here's our new battle mode. Here's a new way you're going to be able to play Pokemon. Not, here's the starters you already saw, and here's us walking around and endlessly and
previously in the world of Pokemon.
We saw 2 new Pokemon in that demonstration, and we saw the mongoose Pokemon. It's a Yungoos. We saw it like 6 times or something, and I was like, okay, come on, let's get to what's next? What's new?
It felt like the entire room here at the War Room was waiting for Zelda to get back on the screen.
I mean, that was the big promise, to see this game for the first time in action, right? And so, like, I kind of feel bad about the Pokemon demo. It's like it was the kind of the wrong type of demo at the wrong point in the presentation, right? And so, I don't hold it against this game. It looks cool. It has a lot of good stuff. It looks beautiful, right? And it's just, that wasn't the place and time for a long, drawn-out demo of stuff we knew.
Weird 2 songs to play back to back, Like, and especially when they go back to Zelda afterwards, and you're kind of sitting there and you're like, why didn't you just run the Zelda demo right after this? Keep all of that together. Get the Pokemon stuff next. I mean, I'm interested in Pokemon. I'm not the biggest fan. Like, it's less important to me than just getting back to Zelda.
But then what they transitioned to was back to Zelda. We have Aonuma. We have commentary. We have the opening of the game. We got to see that, right? Like Link
voice acting right off the bat.
Voice acting right off the bat, which was very exciting. Something that fans have been asking for. Let's react. Like, what did you think of what they showed when they finally got to the nitty gritty? Because earlier we were just talking about the trailer.
My reaction was an instant, right? It's just like, I've played every single Zelda game, even the CDI ones, and I know all the conventions, and I know when I see a hookshot target, in front of a temple, I'm like, I'm gonna get the hook shot. In this game, you're looking at the landscape, and you're like, I'm not sure what's gonna happen, and I'm not sure where to go, which is awesome. And like, we heard some comments about getting lost in this world, and it's like, you're free to explore. This feels like the openness of an Elder Scrolls or Witcher, but with that patented awesome Nintendo control where you can climb things and it just feels really good.
Yeah, that opening shot, very wide. Callie, go for it.
Yeah, the thing for me is, going back to what you're saying, Per, like when you see a hookshot target, you know you're getting the hookshot. You speak the language of Zelda already, and with this, I feel like I'm going to be learning a new language. I mean, there's RPG elements. You see, like when he puts on his shirt in the beginning, it has sort of like clothes stats. I was so excited about the clothing
since Zelda
stats.
too. You get real RPG stats elements.
Yeah, there's stat boosts based on clothing and weapons possibly.
And the inventory management where you're collecting, you're foraging, all of that. I feel like I'm going to be learning a new way to play Zelda, and I'm so excited.
Yeah, and a couple of things I really loved about that, because immediately you're just constantly hunting and gathering and finding things, collecting, chopping down trees, interacting with the environment, and it's not constantly telling you like, no, you got a rupee, you got a rupee. Rupees can be spent at the store. Like they're like they understand that you know what you're into right now. And at this point, look at the HUD on this game, or I should say lack thereof.
Oh, yeah.
It's minimalistic, it's beautiful. Compare that to something like Skyward Sword, which was basically just covered in this sort of like ornate. Here's how your strength of your sword and your beam and all this kind of stuff like that. And this is wide open. It's beautiful. I just can't wait to get lost in this world.
Okay. No, I just want to bring up just quickly. It is something though to look at a Zelda game and for it to be familiar and immediately not familiar at the same time. And I think that's something that just strikes me, something that I cannot believe they pulled off, because that's quite a leap. Like when games change.
Speaking of which,
there's a jump button. But then the one detractor to me, I do want to point this out, is that I did feel like there were constant pop-up notifications telling you, oh, this weapon is mapped to this, or this is how you'll pull a bow. And I hope that for the sake of the final game, that is a one and done. Maybe just for the demo, they are constantly reminding you because it's so new. But the final game really needs to make sure that it pares that down, in my opinion.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the things I love the variety of items. The things, you know, when you explored the world in like Ocarina of Time, right? The first 3D Zelda game, there were trees there. A couple, and you could roll into them and something would fall from the tree, but that was it, right? Like you couldn't really interact with it. And as we're seeing here, you can actually now just walk up and climb the tree and go get the apples from the tree. And then depending on what you do with the apples, you get more health back, right? Like you can process. But the biggest factor for me is that a lot of Zelda games have kind of, you know, shoehorned you into a certain path. Sure, you could do one dungeon out of order, but this seems like a wall is no longer a barrier to you exploring. It's something
it's an
to
obstacle
conquer.
to get over.
You just get over it, and like honestly, I mean, it just looks like you can just go anywhere, right? Right off the bat.
Leading up to this reveal, Aonuma, one of the last quotes that we got from him, and I'm doing a horrible job of remembering when he said it, but he did say that the secret sauce of Ocarina of Time, succinctly, he said, that's been our secret sauce for a while. We really need something new. And he said, I remember it'll be a transition like going from Japanese food to Western food.
Yeah.
It wasn't so much that it's a Western-inspired game, even though you can obviously see there is some Western influence.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it is something that is familiar because it's a dish, but it's almost like it was made by someone else.
Yeah.
And it's equally as good and almost surprising in how good it is.
I mean, look at this old man character here. Like, this is like a character we've seen since the NES
King of
days,
Hyrule?
right?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, I still remember the feeling of playing Ocarina of Time and seeing Death Mountain in the distance and knowing I could go there and how incredible that was. And this is that done differently and scaled up to an enormous size.
You're going to approach Death Mountain from many angles, and that is an exciting thing to know about, rather than just this one defined entrance and one defined exit. Seems to be what they're going for here.
Yeah, and then you have the things like this old man character, which is, I mean, that goes back to Zelda, the original Legend of Zelda. I mean, like it stays grounded in that original feel, but it's so much more. Like I feel like I could go anywhere looking at this gameplay demo. I don't even know. And I don't even know where I'm supposed to. Like I could go anywhere. There's no. I don't speak this language yet.
Look, we got the Four Swords Fire too.
So I know we want to keep talking about Zelda, but I think if we continue, we're going to overlook Pokemon. So we should rein it back a little, just to go over a few details. So our reaction overall, though, to finish this off, what did you think of the presentation overall in its entirety? Meaning Pokemon and Zelda together and the execution of that. What did you guys think?
I thought it was all right. I mean, I was expecting more. I was expecting a tighter presentation and much less of it. It felt very much like a kind of impromptu live stream to me, right? Obviously, they had something mapped out and planned, but it was so casual that it was in stark contrast to what we've seen in the past from Nintendo, but also from the other guys, yesterday. I was expecting a little bit more of a focus on here's what's so different, like something more tightly presented.
Yeah. I mean,
both games.
Yeah, I agree. The thing about at least the Zelda part of the presentation that I think worked, I mean, it was rambly, it was long, but I mean, in our IGN War Room, like we're all sitting in awe. We're not cheering like we were at Sony's conference, for example. And I think that works for Zelda. This is, like you said earlier, Brian, like this is more despondent in a way. It's quieter. I appreciated kind of that downtime, that lull, and the quiet of Zelda. I don't think that worked for Pokemon. I think Pokemon was far too long and padded out with nothingness. And it didn't work for me there, but the Zelda part, I think the format, at least for Zelda, it almost worked in its favor.
Yeah, and it matches the title, right? Breath of the Wild, it just conjures up this thought that you're kind of lost out in the woods and fending for yourself, and you've got the, don't starve-like elements in it.
Yeah.
So I thought that kind of slower, relaxed presentation worked ultimately. It was just kind of set up it wasn't set up well.
We've heard all these great things about Nintendo's booth at E3, and I still can't see it. And I was hoping to get a glimpse of that during their stream today, but really they just sat in front of a large television and talked about these games. Yeah, like I said, the pacing was very weird of going from one to the other and back to Zelda. I ultimately just want to see more and more Zelda, so hopefully that gets to happen. We'll get to play it this week. So
that's all I want to do now.
So I think the struggle with the presentation, outside of yes, Pokemon needed to be tighter, and yes, even though Zelda was rambly, it was still all new information, and so we were all just sort of hanging there going, and what does that do? And what does that do? But I think that what sort of soured this thing is that maybe Treehouse Live has always run this way. And so following this template going into E3, it's not something that we were normally watching or experiencing. So I think it caught us off guard because when you show up at E3 with your presentation, you show up with something tight, concise, and to the point, rather than something that, even though a gameplay demo and live gameplay demos are great, we're not used to so much commentary at the same time as part of them. So I think they did struggle there, but at the same time, starting with Zelda just immediately just got us all in a room like, wait, what? It's going to be what? It looks like what? Like,
you couldn't process.
Really?
Yeah, you couldn't process all the things thrown at you. You're like, you see all these items and all these things and rolling a boulder, and then the grass catches fire, and you're like, whoa, hold on a second.
All right, so we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will continue talking about some of the details in Pokemon Sun and Moon. Don't go anywhere. right, and welcome back. This is the Nintendo Voice Chat, and we're going to continue talking about Nintendo's Treehouse Live presentation. I'm Jose Otero, that's Per Schneider, that's Callie Pleggy, this is Brian Altano, and we're going to focus next on Pokemon Sun and Moon. Yeah. Basically, what sort of became the downer of the presentation, but still had exciting things in it a bit.
Yeah, so I really want to talk about the UI. They've really changed it up, and the most notable thing that they actually didn't mention until later on, after they'd first shown it, is you have these effective, super effective, not very effective tags on all the moves. So when you open up your moves to fight, to battle, you can at a glance see how effective your moves are going to be, which is nice. I think that's really nice for kids, especially who are still learning the the type matchups. Like one thing I really didn't like about Pokemon Black and White is that first gym is a tutorial on how type matchups work, and I hated that so much. And I think this gives it an opportunity to, like, here's an easy way for people who are new to Pokemon to see how this works without really belaboring the point for you.
Yeah.
So I like the UI. I like there's kind of like this 90s sort of scribble you can see there behind the Pokemon's names and their HP bars. I don't know. I like it. It's
and Pokemon Company continues to redesign the bottom screen of the dual screen Pokemon experience. I love how you're able to see the field and the 2 Pokemon that you have equipped right there. I really like that type matchup thing because it is intimidating. When I gave Pokemon to my niece, for example, she's not going to know type matchups. Some of them make sense and some of them don't, you know? So at the end of the day, I like that idea, as you said, of making it more accessible for that audience.
Yeah, and out of all game franchises, like this one is the one where you have the potential of a huge new audience coming in. I mean, think about it. Like people who started with the, Pokemon Red and Blue games are our age now, right? And we know exactly how this game is played, but the audience keeps on renewing itself. There are lots of new players coming in.
Maybe they'll finally catch Brian. Brian Altano might stick with a Pokemon because now he knows what the type moves do.
No, I tried. It's just I bring my Pokemon out in the world and I don't take care of them and they all die and it's bad.
No.
Have you heard his dead Pokemon story?
I don't want
morbid.
to.
No. Let's keep it positive.
I just bringing it back a little bit.
They're not dead. They're faint.
Reining it in a little bit. I think one of the main tenets of the Pokemon series, like the franchise as a whole, in all of its media, is accessibility, and you can scale it up or down to your desired difficulty level or what you want to do. You can only catch them all, or you can go in and breed Pokemon, and you can learn how the competitive scene works. And that took me years to understand. And I like that they are including accessibility options. I mean, they did that with EV training, for example, with super training in X and Y. They're introducing new ways that you don't necessarily have to follow. It's not making the game easier necessarily. I do think X and Y were easier in comparison to the others, but I think that this is so typical of Pokemon to reach out to the player and say, here's a little bit of a lifeline if you're not sure what's going on.
Well, and that super training transition was necessary, I feel. Like if you wanted more people to understand how that system works, it was something that, like at one point, it was a lot of just stat tracking and spreadsheet numbers and like you taking meticulous notes of how many of a certain type Pokemon you fought. And so I think that opening that up, this series has a history of making itself more accessible in smart ways. I do agree with that. So hang on, Battle Royale.
Yes.
Let's talk about that. This is the thing you told me was the most exciting to you.
By far the most
She's
exciting.
ready to take off like a rocket.
Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, the Pokemon has also had a history of introducing new battle styles, starting with double battles in Gen 2, and then moving on to the most recent addition was Horde battles, where you had 5 Pokemon battling or fighting you at once or challenging you at once. And this is interesting because it's multiplayer. It's different than the competitive scene. It's adding a different dimension to the competitive scene. This is more, I feel like, a sort of a more, not casual, but you can round up 3 friends and just be like, all right, good luck, best of luck to you. And I love the way this looks. It's free for all. You can hit any Pokemon you want. And I think there's kind of a sneak element where maybe you attack a Pokemon that no one's expecting you to attack.
Yeah.
Or maybe you talk to your friend and say, let's gang up on Litten. And I think there's a lot of potential there. I'm so excited to see more from this.
Yeah, it's like a very pared down, hyper-focused version of the battle system, and you get to just jump in and try it out. And I like that a lot because sometimes I do get lost in the grass out there.
Lost in the tall grass.
Do you think this is like the battle mode to replace the classic Mario Kart kind of foursomes?
Yeah. I'm into that. That's really cool.
It's about time, honestly. I mean, we've been doing 1v1 for a while now.
Yeah. Well, I wonder, though, as well, and maybe it doesn't, but would this new battle mode have competitive scene implications? Maybe something that happens at the Pokemon Championship or the lead up to that. What do you think there? Because you follow the competitive scene very closely.
I do. I mean, the Pokemon competitive scene is really interesting because the players themselves kind of invent new rules. There's this whole internet kind of subgenre of competitive play that's not the official rules, but they have tiers, and you can play with only baby Pokemon, and they invent their own ways to enhance the competitive
brutal
scene.
Brutal sport.
It's kind of like the way people play Monopoly, where they're like, I put $500 under free parking.
Yeah.
That's not a rule. Hey, wait a minute.
You can build up your own rules, and it's very from the ground up. So I think that it might even start with the players themselves coming up with interesting ways to use this battle system. And how do we best each other? What is a way that I can? I mean, a lot of competitive Pokemon is about predicting your opponent's move. It's not so much about planning your own move, but this Pokemon has this moveset, and I know that this moveset is common, and so I know that they're probably going to use this against me. How do I counter that? And how do I think 2 or 3 or 4 steps ahead of my opponent? I'm interested to see how this works because you have 3 more people that you're up against, or 2 more people that you're up against, how do you predict all of them? How do you counter everybody?
Yeah.
That's really, really interesting to me.
No, yeah, I completely agree. I guess I want to talk a little bit about, did they share anything interesting in the overworld? Because I feel like I almost didn't catch it. Like, it was just sort of, it's here, it's gone, it looks better. I like the art style they're going with in this game, but was there anything that's
You can chop down the trees, you can burn them down. You
Wrong
can
game!
Wait your turn. Yeah, I think one of the interesting things is when you approach a trainer, the screen kind of goes in this vignette sort of mode. I mean, that's not like a game changer, but at least you're not going to be totally caught off guard by Lass Audrey over there with her Caterpie or whatever they showed.
Got it.
Totally.
Okay.
But I mean, everything, it struck me, and I sat out the last Pokemon game. Too many things to play. I still love the franchise, but like it struck me that everything looks so crisp and upgraded in the animations. Like audio, do they have their own calls now, or are we still? Is every Pokemon voiced and like?
Yeah.
So everything's upgraded. And
Yeah.
It sounds as good as it looks now.
Yeah, and it looks amazing. I mean, you can see here like this. There's a sort of scripted festival scene going into this battle with your friend/rival, and it looks really cool. You have the torches, and it's all engaged with the Hawaii sort of setting, and I think it looks really great. I am curious to see if every Pokemon has a call, because we started like in Pokemon Yellow, only Pikachu had a unique call, and the rest were kind of these
we're still
little
waiting,
pixelated growls. Yeah, I think that'd be pretty cool.
Well, Pikachu still sounded pretty rough because of the Game Boy speaker, right? It was like stuck in static.
It was still awesome.
Yeah, it was
still
very
great.
awesome. Not going to complain.
Those were the days where one word made us happy.
Yeah, no,
You know
it's
what
true.
else makes me happy? 2 words, like open eyes.
Yeah. Oh, well, you know what? Fine. We beat around the bush long enough. So we still, I want to talk more specifically into Zelda. I want to try and drag us out to 11. But general impressions then. Let's switch back to Zelda. If we could load that stuff up, please. Yeah. I mean, what's on your mind right now about Zelda? Honestly, like, let's go around. Like, what are you thinking? What's the first thing you do when you play this game?
I want to play it. Is what's on my mind.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those games where I feel like the E3 demo, you're just going to sit there and you go like, all right, I'll go left, right? Whereas in a lot of demos, you sit down and it's a set path for you. You're playing one level out of a game. It's basically you're in a timed demo and you can go any way. So I want to find my own path. I want to explore something that you haven't seen or you haven't seen, and then we get back together and we talk about what we found. And I think this is one of those games, right? It's like the kind of like the Minecraft Don't Starve type games where there's this meta game of talking to your friends about what you found and like what you combined and what how you died.
Yeah, I can't wait to come into the office and talk about, like, oh, and I cut down a tree and I went across this chasm and I found this Easter egg, and I want to hear what everybody else found. I feel like none of us is going to have the same experience with the demo even, and that is so exciting to me. That we're not on rails at all. It feels like you're just going off, you're wandering, you're having your own journey, you're exploring and learning about Hyrule, and it has this like ruined element, like there's ruins and there's these weird sort of spider-looking
It looks like
neck things.
It looks like an anime, like a Miyazaki anime, like Laputa or Nausicaa or something, where you have this kind of forgotten world, right?
It looks very Ghibli. If you look at the Japanese logo for Breath of the Wild, it looks like a Ghibli
like Nausicaa,
logo.
right?
Yeah. And I love that it has this Ghibli sort of animation. It's so good.
I'm really excited to see how the difficulty scales. If hero mode or whatever that is this time around is available right off the bat. If you can play this like
it feels like it's hero mode. You're not even wearing clothes when you start.
Yeah,
you can make hero mode happen by never putting on an outfit.
Hero mode is don't cook your food. That's what it is. Go full sushi.
I want to see how sort of like Dark Souls this game gets. I feel like there's elements of that, and it's really cool because we actually talked about it on NVC. I think it might have been last week. We talked about how Triforce Heroes had so many different outfits that you could pick from, right? And that's here again now with all the stat adjustments. And we're like, okay, well, we haven't seen his tunic, but there might be hundreds of other things he can wear. So let's see where this goes.
Absolutely. I think, it's funny because I think you all hit it on the head, right? I can't remember, correct me if I'm wrong, the last time I saw a demo at E3 that was that open, that you can go in any direction, you can just sort of find your own adventure and essentially have a different story to tell. And I do find that very exciting because the amount of knowledge that's going to get shared for the rest of this week about Zelda is going to be fascinating on one part, right? It was a shame during the presentation, but, you know, Bill Trinan, good friend of the show, had some troubles going on there in combat. But, you know, even something as small as like seeing that nod to Wind Waker, right? The what do you call those guys? The
Bokoblins?
The Kokoraks, which, you know, was just floating there. And that was something that I didn't expect to see. Like, I almost expected... I don't expect to see many callbacks to other Zeldas necessarily, and maybe I shouldn't be that way, but I feel like I just expect them to kind of establish their own rules in their own world, and then there'll be light nods to certain things, right?
We have gotten a good deal of familiar enemies so far, but we saw in the trailer off in the distance there was this sort of like hulking, giant, skeleton-looking beast. I'd like to see how much crazier that gets. One of my favorite things to do in Wind Waker was like get that photo mode thing and start taking pictures.
Oh, take a selfie?
And take pictures of all the different characters and look at their 3D models, because the art direction in that game is gorgeous. I feel the same way here. There's going to be a lot of very interesting characters.
So, did you notice, I mean, we saw this in the trailer and the demo, like you saw when Link was climbing around on the rocks outside the Temple of Time structure, you had the old kind of robot monster like being overgrown and broken down, right? Like we saw that one from the first Zelda demo. It was running around open in the open field, so you could imagine that either that comes to life or this is from a past battle, and you see this broken creature and you're like, oh, there must be more of those. And then you walk into some area and that rock monster, did you see that? Was forming from the rocks in the environment?
Yeah, that was in the trailer itself, and it was something else where you're just like, wait. So there's a great quote from Aonuma during when they were showing Hyrule Warriors, where actually that's not the clip, but that is the thing you were referring to. I thought the rock monster was actually in the trailer. But Aonuma was talking about that the one thing that impressed him very much about the Dynasty Warriors, Hyrule Warriors crossover, you know, that game, was that the bosses were out in the wild. It's like in Zelda, we normally put you in a room with one of these things and it's an arena battle. We don't put you outside. So the prospect of that and seeing that big rock monster immediately set off in my head that quote, and I was like, oh man, this guy, they're going to bring it. You're going to run into something that can basically wipe you out. So I have a confession to make to this panel. So I've been keeping things from you. And I've played Zelda.
Congratulations.
What the? I thought we were friends.
And we're going to talk about it when we come back from this commercial. We will be right back. Don't go anywhere. We're going to talk about Zelda. Welcome back to IGN Live. I'm Jose Otero, that's Brian Altano, that's Callie Pleggy, that's Per Schneider, and I confess, I have played The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. We need to talk about it now for reals.
Friendship over. First of all.
Number one.
Come on, man.
Thanks for the invite.
So I have some interesting stats to share that were told to us. So there was a slide presentation, and I mean, where to begin? First, the world. Two interesting stats that I heard. One is that the world size will fit about 12 Twilight Princess maps, which to them, that's huge. Twilight Princess is a massive game. Two, the Great Plateau demo that is on the show floor, the area that you're going to explore, I believe Aonuma said is 1% of the overall final game.
Good God.
Wow. Which is just like...
Wow.
Whenever this game comes out, I'm going to be missing for a month.
Oh my lord, in that world. Seriously, so Twilight Princess was the biggest Zelda map, right?
Yeah.
And if you played Skyward Sword, it had kind of cool areas to explore, but it didn't have this kind of feel of a connected overworld, right? Like you flew from destination to destination, basically dropped in from like a glorified map screen.
Yeah. It's interesting you bring that up because that came up after Skyward Sword, and you can read about this on IGN. We have an enormous preview, like 3 pages long. But after Skyward Sword, they wanted to do something bigger. And Skyward Sword was brought up because you got these pockets into these different landscapes, right? Well, they wanted to find out what's everything in between. Yeah. That was sort of the starting point.
As
and then out from there, and so from there, they sort of kept pulling out. And I have to say that there's a lot of fascinating things about it. So Link has been asleep for 100 years, according to the story. In the early part of the game, they were avoiding it because they didn't continue the objective where the old man is pointing you towards. But you find out so much about the situation in the world and how dire it is and how Link has this place as the hero. That monster you saw at E3 2014, the tentacled thing, that's called a Guardian.
Okay. We saw a broken
I did not
one.
encounter one during my play session. In fact, it was hinted that I might run into one, but I didn't see that. Instead, if we bring up in the trailer, there's that moment where the rock monster forms. I thought that was really interesting because that thing, it has a specific name, but more importantly, the weak spot is on its head. And so you had to use a potion. You brew potions when you cook. You're not just eating food. You're cooking potions that you will give you stat buffs.
So hold on. Weak spot. Do you see it on the monster? Is it the red blinking Star
No,
Fox?
it's on the top of his head. It's a different colored rock. It looks almost like crystal.
Okay.
You can't really see it in the trailer. If we rewind just a little bit,
there he is.
It will be roughly on his back. And so what happened in the presentation, also, check out that
Look at
armor,
that
man.
armor.
We didn't even talk about that.
Gosh, yeah.
He's wearing full armor, and there's toe tools to the left of the rock monster, by the way, because you collect those and cook stuff.
Yeah.
More importantly, in the demonstration that I saw, this rock monster formed. Link's equipment wasn't strong enough to fight it. So he used a potion to knock it over, basically, or a bomb. I believe it was maybe a bomb, because you saw that Sheikah Slate.
Yeah.
There are runes that you slot into that thing, and it gives you access to special abilities. So now there's 2 types of bombs that you can create, and you detonate them on command. All right, so think about this. When you throw a round bomb, it's obviously going to roll around, but imagine you sort of roll it down a hill, and then when it gets to the spot you want, blow it up. Exactly.
Yeah.
The cube-shaped bombs are different, where if this iPhone was a moving platform to a wall that's breakable, you would leave the bomb at the end, and when it gets there, bam, open up that area, continue forward.
Yeah.
Like remote mines, basically.
Yeah, so you knock him over, you climb his back using the jump mechanic. Yes, Zelda has a jump button now. Oh my God. And you're able to climb up and then hit the rock on the back of his head.
So Shadow of the Colossus style, climbing your enemy, or different?
Because in Shadow, so it's funny because I just started playing Shadow just on a hunch.
Yeah.
And that game is more about hanging on for dear life.
Yep.
Whereas in this one, I mean, there is a stamina meter to this too, but Shadow's so artistic in hanging on for dear life. Like you see poor Wander getting like swaying back and forth in the air, and that wasn't really a part of this fight per se. But you can get knocked off of his back when that rock monster sort of regains his and wakes up. So keep asking me questions.
But let's not
bring it
forget,
on.
like, Zelda games are famous for giant freaking enemies, right?
Yeah.
Like, all of the games, you get into a room and something comes out of the swamp, and you're like, man, that is really, really big.
Yeah.
And we really haven't, outside of this, what are they called? Guardian?
The Guardians.
Yeah.
So
that's a
outside of this Guardian, we haven't really seen the kind of the true, like, boss monster yet.
Yeah.
So who knows? Like, with the climbing mechanic in this game, who knows what you're going to be able to do?
Yeah. And so Aonuma doesn't want to specify where it takes place on the timeline, because that always comes up.
I was wondering
This game is
that.
directed by Hidemaru Fujibayashi. If you know your Zelda, you know that is the director of Skyward Sword. It's the same dude. He started out in Capcom Flagship. He worked on the Game Boy Color Zelda titles, and then he has slowly sort of moved up until he directed the last Zelda, and he's directing this Zelda.
Wow.
But of course, Aonuma, as series producer, he's the boss. He calls the shots. Yeah, just so much to talk about. I mean, keep questions coming. Like, what do you want to know?
I was going to say, did you know anything about amiibo functionality?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah. So the Wolflink amiibo, and sadly, we don't have footage to show you of this. But when you complete the Cave of Shadows, you have to complete the Cave of Shadows in Twilight Princess, and you sort of store up a number of hearts. When you swipe that Wolflink amiibo in Zelda Breath of the Wild, a Wolflink companion will show up with you.
What?
And run around in the world, help you hunt and forage for things. And he stays alive as long as he has hearts to sustain him. If he is killed, essentially, he will disappear and you can't summon him again until the next day, which is a common thing in Amiibo.
Sure.
We've seen that before. One swipe a day and then go pray or something.
So you can get a pet wolf. You get dog meat, like Metal Gear. So if you're watching at home, you have homework to do before the new Zelda game comes out, and that's to go beat that area of Twilight Princess.
So they're also announcing 3 more Amiibo. For the game, all themed around Breath of the Wild. We don't have assets to show you, sadly, but if you've seen the concept art, which hopefully our people can pull up on screen, it's based on the concept art. So the first one is, and we don't have it, but we're going to continue talking about it. So there's Archer Link, and he's in that sort of pose, firing his arrow. We don't know the functionality, by the way, but we've seen that. There is a Rider Link. He's on riding Epona, essentially. The detail is amazing. It looks so good. And then finally, the Guardian is going to be an amiibo, and it has posable tentacles.
What?
So you can set up your own little
That's
battle
like a
scene.
Figma amiibo.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
Yes,
it is very cool. You mentioned you get to use the wolf once a day.
Yeah.
What does day mean in this game? What is a day-night cycle like?
Oh, that's a great stat. So day in real time, not day in game.
Right.
Yeah.
Every minute is 1 hour in the game.
Okay.
And so 24 minutes is a 24-hour cycle. Okay. There's weather, etc. In our demo, I didn't really get to see a lot of weather because it was a time demo.
It didn't rain or anything?
No, it was a clear, sunny day, and I don't know how they're managing that dynamic weather. They didn't really talk about it.
Whether it's tied to location or if it's like random.
Yeah,
like,
a few other things they didn't want to talk about. So that arrow from the first trailer, if we bring that up at least, that Link fires the mechanism. Remember that he pulls up and he pulls back, he shoots the Guardian with. Not the 2 fire arrows before that. Tight-lipped, will not say a word, tied to the story, important to getting around in that game. My impression is it's powerful, not sure. Another thing Aonuma wouldn't talk about was towns.
Yeah.
Which struck me as
There's
odd.
not a lot of people in this demo. There's an old man.
Outside of the old man, you don't see a soul. But in the trailer, I did notice, and I didn't point this out in Rewind that we did, but there was a little house. But we didn't go to any town. Aonuma was saying that's also tied closely to the story. Did not want to spoil it. Another thing. There is going to be a Zelda-like upgrade system, is all he would say. Yeah. So if you think about it, Skyward Sword had an equipment upgrade system that required you had to use materials to use. Also, did you notice you don't pick up a single rupee?
I was going to ask about it. I didn't see wing plung the traditional kind of
you're never
rupees
going to get hearts
popping out.
Yeah, you're never going to get hearts from cutting grass. You're never going to get rupees from cutting grass. Instead, you have to gather and sell things. So I said, with the upgrade system, I assumed that it would happen in towns, and Aonuma looked at me and said, not quite. And that's all he would say.
Is there
Sasanuma.
Is there a permanence to any of the weaponry here? Because we've seen a lot of it break. I know you can upgrade it.
It can break. Yeah.
Okay. I want to make sure that eventually I get a sword that doesn't break, and I get a bow and arrow that doesn't break.
Yeah, when you get to the Master Sword,
break. Come on.
But will it then
just
be
that big Goron junk?
Okay, but let's the Goron junk. I like that. I like that so much.
Big Goron junk.
Yeah,
terrible sword.
Okay, I don't know how I feel about that one. But more important, sorry, you said
Welcome to NBC.
Welcome to Nintendo Voice Chat, where we don't know. Anyway, I don't know what to say there. It makes you wonder if. So they show a shot of the Master Sword as the last shot of the trailer. And it makes you wonder, that shouldn't be something that breaks, but is there going to be some kind of limitation on when you can use it? I need to tell you guys about combat, but I want to answer Callie's question first.
Yeah, so Miranda Sanchez actually pointed this out. In the logo that comes up, the Master Sword in the Zelda logo is rusty.
Yeah.
And that is really interesting to me because I think that relates to the lack of people. I feel like
clearly something has happened. Yeah,
I think it was water damage because this takes place after Wind Waker, and you wake up in that pool of water at the beginning. I think Hyrule gets drained, and then the adventure begins.
That's a really good theory.
Maybe that's it. There's a fast travel
system.
Maybe
it also rains once in a while.
There's light. Did you see in the trailer? There's this brief moment where the lightning just strikes down, and Nintendo just issued a press release where they mentioned that light can be attracted to Link's weapon, and I'm just like, what? Really?
So you can do the Thor Mjolnir.
I don't know. There was the Skyward Strike in the last game. It almost makes you wonder if that's going to return too.
I want to channel lightning.
So there's fast traveling. When you get to an enemy camp, you can obviously take it over. You can cook at that location. We got a few recipes. We saw that if you cook a bokoblin fang and a frog,
look at that.
you make a hasty elixir. Look at that spin attack.
And
that
you
looks
drink
so
that?
good.
That sounds
That
awful.
right there.
That's
Rewind
juice.
that right there. Go back a second. When he repelled and put his shield up. That's a new thing in combat that basically you can sort of parry an attack. And in some cases, I don't want to misremember this. I can't remember if by parrying like that, I disarmed the bokoblin or not. All I know is there were some funny consequences that came from that. Because you can disarm enemies. You can't take their weapon away just like you could a la the Wind Waker.
Like Wind Waker,
but
yeah.
more importantly, the bokoblin got so frustrated he started throwing punches. And since I stayed away from him, he dug up the ground, found a stone, and threw it at me.
What?
And I was like, what is going on?
That's really
Fun fact,
cool.
imagine my surprise when I found out you can smack it out of the air and it'll hit him back.
Oh, so you can play baseball
You
with
can just
a
whack
rock?
and it hit him right in the
Man.
face. I
That's
could
very
not
Ocarina of Time.
believe that.
Yeah.
But yeah, when we were talking earlier about how everyone's going to have a different story to tell, I feel like that is the essence of this demo. And having played it and then talked to people, other folks who had played it, I heard so many different stories from so many different people and things that they found and stuff that happened. And it just felt like, wow, I can't remember the last time I have been this excited about a Zelda game. Like, it's been a while. I don't even think I was this out of control with A Link Between Worlds, which I was very, excited for at the time. But the promise of what this game is and how many options you have and how vast this world is and the number of activities, we're excited about climbing trees and picking apples in a Zelda game. Like, what's wrong with us right now?
It's the discovery factor, right? It goes back to the very first Zelda game where you cut down a certain bush, and that unlocks your path, right? And like, like the first 3D Zeldas, like you find a cow and you're like, I don't know what to do with a cow, right? And like, when you find out, you feel like such a smart person. You want to tell your friends.
Yeah, and that path to discovery is going to be very important. So we've got to take a quick break, but we're going to come back. We're going to obviously keep talking about this. Pear, Callie, Brian, prepare your questions. Bring me everything you got. Stay with us. Welcome back to IGN Live. We are the cast of Nintendo Voice Chat. I am Jose Otero. This is Brian Altano. That is Callie Pleggy. And at the end, the reaction man himself, Per Schneider. We are talking about my hands-on time with Zelda, which I'm trying to give you guys all the information I can. In fact, if you go on IGN right now, you can find a 3-page preview that breaks down extensively what I played, along with quotes from Aonuma and the people involved in the making of the game. We should talk about combat right now, because we haven't done a lot of talking about that. We did a little at the end of the last segment. And I want them to cue up the trailer for a second, if they can, just to show the moment where Link, right here, just play this moment and pause really quick. So you notice the bokoblin swung at him, and when Link dodged, it initiated a slow motion. This is a new thing. You can basically dodge, and then you have fury swipes that you can sort of react and attack back with. I smacked the bokoblin out of the air. That was so cool. Like, just like, plah, Matumbo, what you gonna do? And then we also saw that moment. We saw the arrows sort of getting fired. We know all about that. In another trailer that I saw, Link jumped off a ledge, initiated the slow-mo, and was just firing arrows at bokoblin like as he was falling. It was so cool. I did not find a single horse in my demo.
Which is crazy. I mean, like this game was announced as Link on a horse with bow and arrow, and it's so cool that this demo focuses on everything else. You know?
All over in the Battlefield 1 demo game.
Obviously, Nintendo's going to stream a lot more, right? So
they're streaming
presumably
now.
we'll be seeing more footage of horses and all that.
So you guys had a specific question about combat, though. The shield. You asked me about
what can you do with the shield?
Fun fact. Okay, so brace yourselves, all right? Because this is seriously like, I could not believe this. And it showed up as a tooltip first, and I was like, you're kidding. Apparently, if you find a hill, you can jump into the air, because there's a jump button now. Oh my God, like we keep reacting that way to it.
Yeah.
But then if you press a certain button, I think it's A and B or A, essentially, Link will take a shield, stand on it, and surf down the hill.
What?
Now, if you want to go full Legolas
way.
from the two towers, you can do that. You can pull out your bow and arrow at the same time and just pluck away at the different enemies while shield surfing. I didn't find a hill high enough to do much, but what? That's so cool.
So I have a really important question to follow that up. Is he still his dorky self, or is he like smooth like Legolas?
I think it's a mix of both, because I didn't see enough of his personality. That's a great question. In terms of, it's just sort of a bewildered Link who doesn't really know what's going on in the world. But at the same time, and he still has those goofy reactions. Like if you cut to the cooking that we saw in the trailer, or cooking that, I don't know if they cooked anything during this portion of the stream.
Yeah.
He's sort of reacting there. And
I wanted to point that out.
Back and forth, and when it comes out, he's like, yes.
He's such a goober. I love him.
But when he's fighting, he does not look like a goober. I mean, if you just look at the battle footage, first of all, first impression, Jose.
He's the best of both worlds.
It looked like it felt like Wind Waker.
Yeah.
Like the way, you have new actions where you can do that Fury Bash stuff. Like Wind Waker had the parries, right, where you had to hit the A button in order to roll around and strike an enemy from the back. With some of the Dark Nut guys, you had to cut the cords at the back of their armor. Like, does it feel like that? Is the combat like more like a Wind Waker style with the react?
I would say so, but at the same time, I didn't see a counter system like prior Zeldas, thinking back on my time. Like the jump was up to me. It didn't really hint at me, like, get out of the way. Someone like just sort of leaned over and said, hey, try to jump to the side. And I kept trying to hit A and B by reflex, because that's how you played Zelda before. The jump button is actually at the top of the diamond, which I'm forgetting. I'm doing a horrible job at my job. I believe that's the X button. You will jump
it's different on every controller.
Yeah, it's hard to keep up. It's the triangle on the PlayStation. But regardless, you will jump in the air, and you can sort of dodge and jump to the side. And it's really, really cool.
Now we've seen like just in this section right here, there were ducks, there were deer, there were like eagles, hawks. Can you hunt all these things?
Yes.
Really?
And you're going to use the meat. Yeah. So
you're going to use the meat.
You're going to use the meat to cook. So some of the recipes I got, if you cook meat with Hylian shroom, you get meat and mushroom skewer, or meat and shroom skewer.
You've brought us recipes.
I got detailed recipes, son.
This game has everything.
You've got Link's recipes.
Yeah, I got it all. Watch out. Then if you add a truffle to that mix, it changes the recipe where you not only get more hearts, but you'll get an additional heart for your life bar. So you start with 3 hearts, and it looks like that's the way you're going to expand that.
Yeah,
I didn't get a question in on it, sadly. I
is
feel
there hunting
like
around for heart pieces? Because I always enjoy that, but
you're not. Like, they are bucking trends left and right.
Oh,
I love how, though.
What am I going to be searching the world for now?
We are going to search for something.
For duck meat.
Yeah,
That's what you're looking for.
I can't wait to see what else I have to look for. Yeah.
Just a few more things. In terms of, I'm just trying to remember. Oh, I love that the demo did start with Link asleep, and Aonuma joked, because I said to him, hey, are there any conventions left, like, you're not going to change? He's like, actually, some we won't change, like Link waking up for the first time. Like, that's something we're going to stick to. Some conventions don't change.
What about, like, I saw other items just now
we have
in
a
the
Twitter
footage.
question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Did you see it had the kind of like the ice wand equivalent of raising an ice platform?
Oh, we haven't talked about
And it
that.
had the crazy magnet, which looks like that prototype controller Nintendo patented.
Those better not be related.
No,
it's not. Better not be related.
But I don't know what to think. Magnet, weird U-shaped.
So we got a Twitter question. Let's go over to it. And then I do want to talk about that, though, what that was, because we haven't said what that thing is.
What's up, Aiden?
So bring it up. This is from Aiden Connolly, excuse me. How did you guys feel about Link waking up in the Shrine of Resurrection? Couldn't be hinting that Link was dead. I'm not entirely sure. In terms of the story of this game, they're very tight-lipped. I think the resurrection is of the world itself. I don't think it has to do necessarily with with Link being dead
But what
necessarily.
if it was a continuation of the timeline where Link is dead?
It could be.
Remember,
Yeah. It
Link
could be.
fails in one timeline.
Yeah.
Oh, so the hero
Ganon
sort of
wins,
being reborn, yeah.
right? And what if
Yeah.
that's the same
It
Link
could be.
who's
Actually,
getting
that's a great
reborn?
logic.
That'd be
actually, yeah.
amazing.
Maybe.
Yeah, I
maybe.
mean that's sort of what we're seeing. We're seeing the Hyrule in ruins.
Yeah.
We got Link waking up after what you said 100 years.
Well, yeah, but the Resurrection Shrine, it's funny because, I mean, this is a slight spoiler. I don't know if folks want to hear this, so like cover your ears for like a minute while I say it, and starting now. Basically, the Resurrection Shrine, there's a lot of things called a Resurrection something. There's a Resurrection Shrine that you wake up in, but then there's also Resurrection Towers. When you activate a certain point in the game, like right in the early demo, you activate this point, and all of these towers all over the land rise, and that's why I think it's more related to the land than
you
maybe
think
it
so?
is the hero, but I
Does
think
it
maybe
bring
it's
back the
both.
people?
Why not both?
Maybe it's both.
We got Link is a man who can do both.
Yeah.
Dork and really good
Yeah.
archer. So.
All right,
Get
come
you a
back.
man that can do
Spoiler
both.
free.
That's what I was waiting to say that.
Spoiler over. It's
But I know
sensitive
you had a
stuff.
bunch of people on set covering their ears.
Yeah, that was really funny, actually. Our cameraman
But
covered
it's
his
like,
ears.
I mean, the interesting thing about the Zelda games are, some are the same Link and the direct sequel. Some are reboots, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like this hero
Reincarnations.
born,
Yeah.
reincarnated every couple of hundred years or so. But Ganon is always brought back
Yeah.
too. It's not like Ganon gets reincarnated.
Yeah. But one of the new things is the Sheikah Slate, which they showed. That's the item that he first picked up when he woke up, if we cut to that point in the demo. And what's interesting about that is that I said earlier, abilities get tied to it, and I talked about the bombs and how there's two. There's circular bombs and there's cube-shaped bombs. I didn't get to use this in my demo, but the magnet ability is fascinating because basically it turns you into Magneto in the Zelda world. Like, it turns you into Magneto in Hyrule, where you'll be able to pick up objects made of metal, drop them near enemies, or you'll be able to maybe move giant doors made of metal.
Oh,
I
wow.
heard of one example where there was a metal chest that can be lowered because there was no way to get to it. But since the chest was made of metal, you were able to go,
Nice.
Does it make that
I
noise?
made that up. I made that up. That's not what it sounds like. Yeah. I was clearly
better now.
This game has Three Stooges sound effects.
Yeah, it may. So that's another rune, though, that you'll slot into the Sheikah Slate, and it will, you can manipulate objects. I'm so disappointed I didn't get to try it, though, so I can't wait to actually play this thing again to do that.
Can I ask you about, we saw in a lot of the concept art, there was that book item that...
That's the item I'm talking about, Sheikah Slate.
So is this sort of like, is that how you interact with your map?
Is that
there
the
everything
gamepad?
else?
Yes, it looks like a gamepad.
Yeah.
To some degree, I mean, when he picks it up and he pulls it for the first time, it's just kind of this big screen that he pulls to himself.
But it looks
And there
like
is
the
this
gamepad.
technology versus nature thing.
What does that mean for the NX version, though? Like, I keep on watching this, and like, obviously we're
Yes.
seeing the Wii U version, not the NX one.
Okay, so I can talk about that. The Wii U version that I played showed nothing except instructions for buttons on the gamepad itself. Meaning, in order to look at the map and set a marker, I had to bring that up on screen.
Oh.
That says a lot to me. However, Aonuma did say during a group interview, this game supports the Pro Controller, so it could just be hinting towards that. The last few Zelda's HD remakes have supported the Pro Controller. You didn't have to play with the gamepad. I'm tempted to think that that says a lot about the NX version not having two screens, but I think that that's still up for debate. So being that Pro Controller has been supported across all the HD Zelda titles.
So you're
that
saying
they've
you
done.
can play this entire game with the Pro Controller?
That is correct. Aonuma said that. He said that to
Wow,
a room
okay.
full of folks. Yeah.
So not a Zelda game developed around the gamepad and the screen functionality, right? Like, there wasn't anything in the demo where you had to use the screen to mix recipes or anything. It was
No.
all on screen.
Yeah, even remember at the
Interesting.
Game Awards,
Yeah.
you saw the map on the gamepad itself, and he was zooming in and he was
Yeah.
zooming out, and he was using. All of it was on screen. The motion control was still there, and if you want to override it, just move your right stick. That much I can tell you. But yeah, it's still sort of a mystery what's on that screen.
Now, we keep seeing the stamina meter popping up.
Oh, yeah, let's
what
talk about
what are
that.
the limitations on that?
So I don't know exactly how much time you have, but it does take into account your orientation and your climbing. So let's say you're climbing a flat surface and you're going straight up, chips away slowly. If at some point you end up sort of with your back to the ground, it depletes a lot faster. There are potions for that, though, that you can increase your stamina with. I noticed in a trailer, or I'm assuming it's a potion. I saw a trailer where Link was climbing, and folks will see this at Nintendo's booth, but Link was climbing and the green bar stamina circle was there, but then an additional one with a chunk of yellow additional energy was there. And when the green one ran out, the yellow one started to chip
So
away.
it's like an extra kind of potion upgrade, or maybe maybe
potion.
wristbands or
Yeah,
something.
maybe
or
another potion to tell you about. Anuma told me this, and I thought it was hilarious. He mentioned that there is a snowy area that you can explore, and if you go there, Link starts to freeze. There's actually a temperature gauge on screen that tells you if the temperature is too low or too high, like if that's a hazard.
There's your limitation. Yeah, it's like Metroid, like that.
But can you
so wait. So Link starts to shiver. You have to put on either a quilted tunic, something that has more protection in the snow,
a hood,
or you can brew a potion. And Aonuma says if you brew the right potion, you could run through the snowy area practically naked, like in the outfit that you started with.
I'm doing that,
which I thought was hilarious.
Dream come true.
Again, hero mode whenever you feel like it was what I took away from that. So now you're going to ask.
Yeah, I was going to say, with regard to clothing upgrades to handle the weather, like hunting, if you hunt a deer, can you get fur and like make clothing? Can you craft clothing?
You open it and sleep inside the deer
like
when it
the
gets cold?
Yeah, so I didn't
know where you're going.
No, great question. I didn't get to hunt deer. I think that clothing just gets found in chests. I don't think you'll actually craft it. I think you'll upgrade existing clothing, maybe with materials that you find, so maybe that's a factor. But in the time that I played the game, that was not something that I found. So it was.
He's not a tailor.
Yeah, I don't think so. And again, that would rely on a town which they don't want to talk about, right? Like if Link can't do it on his own, they weren't going to say it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I think that was their outset going in. But I found it interesting too that at night, so enemies go to sleep at night at camps. If we bring up footage of a camp, that would help us out a lot. But
we saw one where you kind of run up on them and they have that steak roasting over the pit.
I found that one. So that one's hilarious because they're like celebrating, like, yeah, we got the biggest steak ever. And the Nintendo rep who was at my demo said, you dance like that too if you had a steak that big. And I was like, no, I guess that's true.
And then you show up and beat them up and snatch their steak.
Showed up, beat them up, and then you get to take the steak. Yeah, I think it was a much larger one too. I love how animated the expressions are on them, but you'll find camps like this. At these camps, enemies will go to sleep
get their
at night.
weapons.
Yeah, they went to get their weapons. Enemies will go to sleep at night, so they're easier to take out. By the way, something we didn't see in this trailer, or at least we're going to get to, in the trailer, did you see Link sneaking through the grass?
Yes, he was
Up to a horse? That's a new thing too. If
quietly.
you click in the left stick, Link will crouch. There's also a sound gauge on screen that will show how much noise you're making, and you can sneak up on an enemy and just whap. Take them out in one hit if you sneak up behind them, but you have to hope that they don't hear you. And there are also potions that will dampen the amount of noise that you make.
Man,
This is like Zelda Skyrim. I'm gonna cry.
No, the Skyrim Gear Solid.
Yeah. But I think I would only be careful with the Skyrim part because I think part of Skyrim though was the side quests that you found, and a lot of this was making your own fun. But I do agree with you that they are on the verge of it.
Yeah.
And I think that that is
it's
genuinely exciting.
It's a Zelda-like take on it.
And it'll be more polished. No offense to Skyrim or Bethesda stuff or some open world games, there is a lack of polish that happens when there are more variables at play. What I played was extremely polished, considering it is 1% and a demo.
Can you imagine the testing it takes to get that right, though? Like, open world games are known for the glitchiness,
Absolutely.
right? That's why we get fun videos on YouTube, and like almost always when you have like a small elevation, you can't get on top, right?
Absolutely.
Like this game, you saw Link was climbing an odd structure, a crooked structure, climbing and going on top. Which
I think
awesome.
we can all imagine the testing every time this game gets delayed. We know exactly what's happening, and they're just making it better.
But you know what's not delayed? This show right here. But we have to take a commercial break. We will be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to IGN Live. I'm Jose Otero. I'm here with the cast of Nintendo Voice Chat, which is a weekly show on IGN that discusses everything Nintendo. Brian Altano is with us. I picked a great time. Callie Pleggy is also with us.
Wait, how does this work?
Per Schneider, reaction guy, popular meme in Japan and all across the world.
I should have just spit the water out.
Yes. No, please don't.
Blow up all the cameras.
Not on the jacket, please. So, what do you guys want to hear about Zelda? I mean, I've outed myself. I've played it. We have a 3-page preview on IGN.
Were you able to mess around with the physics? I mean, we see Link like pushing a ridiculously oversized boulder.
Yeah.
That guy's got some muscles.
Yep.
Guy, by the way.
Guy.
Right?
Yeah.
And then like he's arranging, in the demo they're arranging like explosive barrels, and you can see them playing with the physics. So you played around with the bombs and rolling the bombs. Anything else like that?
I actually pushed one of those boulders down that cliff. And what's funny is that the way the physics work, in the trailer it shows that it hit them both.
Yeah.
In my experience, it actually missed one, and so the other one was just like, what happened, and reacting to it. And then I tried to roll the other one down and missed them again. But it was really funny. And there are... the rock that I was trying to push, actually, I had to push it from a specific angle. Like, if I tried from one side, because of the way it was sitting against that cliff, it wouldn't move. So it's not a given that Link is going to be able to push every rock that he sees.
Right.
But more that if you find the right angle, you'll be able to sort of push it downhill.
Yeah, and so jumping off of that, I had a lot of questions because I noticed in what we've seen so far today, there's a lot of environment manipulation as part of combat, sort of like taking out enemies with the environment. How much of that did you do?
I didn't get to do much, but the way the environment, what stood out to me is more that the amount of foraging in the environment. There are sections like that, right, where you're going to find boulders and you're going to push them down. I don't think you're going to be able to chop a tree to take out a bokoblin unless he's sleeping, and I don't know if the noise would wake him, to be honest. Like, I didn't get to try that, but that's an interesting point, right? Will you be able to manipulate that? There was this one awesome moment in a trailer that I saw where there was a cave that the outside was shaped like a skull. And imagine, you'll see the two eyes and you'll see the teeth that are the mouth, and that's the entrance to the cave. The left eye had a sack of, it looked like just some sort of a chandelier, but it was something that was flammable. And so Link fired an arrow at it, fire arrow at it, and it caught fire and fell. And this huge explosion erupted out of the mouth, out of the cave, and it looks so cool. So there's going to be things like that as well. But part of the foraging too that surprised me is that, okay, so you saw you can use an axe to chop down a tree. You can use a sword, but it's easier with an axe.
Yeah.
Your sword or your axe or your two-handed claymore or your two-handed spear can all break. We've talked about that. If you chop down a tree, and then you chop down the chopped down tree. If you chop that up, you get firewood. If you take firewood and you find flint in a cave, you put those two pieces, those recipes on the ground, and then you strike them with your sword, and you create a spark, and you get a little fireplace right there.
Wow.
Like, there's so much crafting in this. It's almost Terraria-esque, Minecraft-esque.
That's really cool.
Like, there are elements of it that are genuinely exciting because of the possibilities. And this is, again, a fragment of what's going to be in here. Like, I can only imagine what some of the other regions, and when you really explore that world. Nintendo is saying, by the way, that there are over 100 shrines in this game. Which, to me, I don't know how to react to that, because to me that doesn't say that each shrine is like an intricate dungeon like what you saw in... The best example of dungeons in Zelda so far, in my opinion, is Twilight Princess. And there's a couple in Skyward Sword that completely blew my mind. That when I play those dungeons, I'm just like, this is so well thought out and so meticulous. The ones in this game, I saw one shrine. It was the Bomb Trial is what it was called. And it was a lot of puzzles based around the bomb item, essentially, which you had as a rune. No idea what happens if you show up there and you don't have that, right? Like, and I think it's okay if you stumble into a cave that you're not supposed to be at. And that was something they said. I love that Aonuma in an interview with us said, he used to think that getting lost in video games was a bad thing, that getting lost in prior Zeldas was a bad thing. And this one, he is very open to that idea. He thinks it's actually a great thing. And it's something that he didn't expect to be as fun as it is. And I thought that was a very interesting quote that he gave us. Just that lesson that Nintendo has picked up on, just that open world adventure is just that. It's an adventure that you embark on. And the first Zelda captured that so well. You put first Zelda in Brian's hands, he'll go straight for the white sword. He knows exactly where the rupees are. He knows where to pick and get his resources. And that's something that it feels like this game is going to have, but it's also going to have that remix variable of I can make this more challenging for myself. I can end up in an area where everything can kill me. That rock monster that I brought up earlier, the one that they stumbled into, that killed Link in one hit.
Yeah.
And his weapons were not strong enough to take out that crystal that was on its back.
I'm very interested in all that, by the way, because I really like the way we all played Link Between Worlds together, where we were playing the dungeons in different orders, and people were coming in and having different experiences, and we were talking at work, and you were saying, I went to this one first, where'd you go? And I was like, I went to Turtle Rock, and I got messed up. You know, like, they just beat me up in that level. And then I got out and went to a different one, came back stronger. And the way that game did it was there were sort of signposts outside being like, this is a thing that you're going to need in here, or this is a thing that a theme that's going to run predominantly. So I really can't wait to see how they handle that here.
Yeah, and that was an experiment of this formula on a smaller scale, and one that rupees and traditional rules played into basically an item shop, right? That you needed those items to get. And ultimately, it affected the dungeons because some of them felt a little too easy because they were like sort of one-note puzzles. And that's not to diminish their quality, because it wasn't that they were bad. It's just that for the veteran Zelda player, you know, we read this thing, we speed read Zelda puzzles, right? Like we see it and we immediately go, I know what that does, I know what that does, I know what that does, I know what this does. And so I'm very happy to see in this trailer just the idea of that magnet. We haven't had an item like that. What is like learning a new language to Zelda is so exciting. And that's something that I can't wait to explore.
It'll be interesting to see how it all comes together in the way that in Link Between Worlds, you went into a dungeon and it was like, this is just about the hammer. And the hammer was the theme of that dungeon. And it meant that you weren't really using a lot of your other weapons as much, which means that none of them had as much sort of weight or importance. So I really hope that in this game, they sort of find a way to bring all that together where if I haven't played something yet, you haven't played something yet, your experience in that dungeon or shrine is different than mine will be.
Absolutely. So we're ticking away. We're roughly less than 5 minutes left in our live show, but there's going to be a ton more of IGN coverage. And you're going to be able to watch live demos, gameplay. We're going to have a ton of stuff. Zelda is going to eventually be in our booth. Check the schedule. What are final thoughts here? What do you guys, like last questions, or what do you guys, how do you guys want to waste the last 3 minutes
there's so much in this demo reel that's like teasing us. Like, were you able to experience swimming, for example? Is there diving in the game?
I'm so glad you brought this up.
He's holding back.
I'm always holding back. So the stamina meter that you saw plays into not only running fast, but swimming. And if you try to swim across a lake that you don't have enough stamina to cross, you will drown.
Oh, no.
No.
Yes, this
Will
is
you
the
drown
thing.
and see everything underwater and there's a temple down there?
I didn't drown. I started
Okay.
paddling a lot faster because I didn't want to drown. But you see the stamina meter chip away. You have a button that you can hit to sort of like just launch yourself forward a little bit and it eats more stamina. But if you run out of stamina, you will die.
You should have drowned. What is dead?
When you die, do you just return, or do you go back to that weird
You
shrine?
return. No, you return.
Be born
there
again?
are different checkpoints that you can return at.
Cool.
I think those resurrection shrines are some of them. Again, I mentioned there's fast travel. One of the things, too, that I didn't see in the demo that they had, but I noticed in the demo that I saw, was that the mini-map had the time displayed on it. And so I can't help but wonder if that time of day somehow plays into Majora's Mask and things like that. But we've got to wrap this up, so I've really got to kind of move on. Thank you so much for not only staying with us, watching what we're doing here, because Nintendo's streaming at the same time, but for basically being a part of MEC. And thank you guys for being part of this panel and all the questions that you brought. We have a ton of demos happening on IGN. IGN Live is going to continue. Make sure you stick around. Agents of Mayhem is up next. Don't go anywhere. Make sure you check it out.
IGN's aerial footage of E3 is provided by Independence Day Resurgence, in theaters June 24th.